How's it going, y'all? Welcome back to another incredible installment of the Arcane Archive presents MetaTalks. And in today's exciting episode of MetaTalks, we have a particular topic that is quite near and dear to me and Samuel's heart. I mean, honestly, I feel like I say that every time. Like, so much of this is just near and dear.
It's almost like we just like D&D.
It's almost like we just like D&D a lot, you know. But I will say we do have a rather special place, I think, for these peeps that we're going to be talking about now. Sammy, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about one half of our fiendish friends, demons specifically today.
Demons! Yes, it's the demonic episode. Yeah, finally here.
Putrid corruption of the abyss that slowly makes its way onto the material plane.
Indeed. And all parts beyond as well.
Oh, yeah,
we're gonna get a little bit into that a little bit later, as it is intrinsically tied to demonkind, the abyss itself. But you know, once again, we just want to say before we get started, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As you do, please do feel free to again like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you guys like what we're doing. Share it with anybody you think might enjoy it and might want to come and hang out with us. We're always super appreciative and thankful for any support that you guys can offer and provide us and trying to grow the channel and hopefully this specific community here. And as always, we're just, incredibly thankful for any support that you could offer. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and just dive right back down into the archive, y'all, about demons. Now, what you might want to first kind of know about demons is they are spawned from the infinite layers of the abyss. Demons are the embodiment of chaos and evil, engines of destruction barely contained in monstrous form, possessing no compassion, empathy, mercy, or anything of the like. They exist only to destroy. And while that in and of itself is majorly true, you know, a lot of demons go about that in highly different varying ways.
Oh, yeah.
You know, their overall outlook and agenda is highly destructive. Yes, for sure, usually, but you know, it could range anything from obvious physical destruction to even the destruction of like your mental or emotional state, your sense of honor, your sense of being, of self. You know, like they do embody destruction in almost any context or form that it could potentially take. And they do so specifically with the intention and desire of expanding and propagating themselves. Specifically, the abyss creates demons as extensions of itself, spontaneously forming fiends out of filth and carnage and death and destruction. Some are unique monstrosities all their own, while others represent uniform strains virtually identical to each other. Other demons, such as manes, are created from mortal souls shunned or cursed by the gods, or which are otherwise trapped in the abyss. So, essentially kind of how it works is the abyss itself is highly regarded and considered to be almost to a certain extent sentient. And demons are the literal, as it says, manifestations of the abyss's desire to continuously devour and spread itself across the vast omniverse. Any worlds, like the abyss itself is believed to, as stated here, have infinite layers, right? No one has ever been able to traverse the whole of the abyss simply because it is believed that the abyss is infinite, because in essence, it kind of is. And
well, it's not like a solid state either.
No,
because to go from place to place in the abyss, it's oftentimes rips and tears or portals of sorts.
It's usually completely random. You're not just going like you're not going down like into an abyss. That's not actually how it works. Yeah. It's literally just almost completely at random, because in the abyss, there are just a vast myriad amount of portals and rifts to all other different places in the omniverse. Like you could go to the material plane, you could potentially go to the 9 hells, you could go to
not even just that, within the abyss itself. There is no like, you can't go from one end to the other by walking. It is a web of horror.
It's a it's so hard to describe, which is kind of also the whole kind of vibe of the abyss. Is the abyss is literally like its own like alpha plane with multiple planes inside of it.
Yeah.
Think of it like it's like it's got like a whole dimension kind of encapsulating it, but it's a dimension that has multiple other dimensions all throughout it. And those are considered to be the layers of the abyss. Because literally what those layers are is a lot of people theorize that they are the defeated, devoured worlds that the abyss was able to successfully absorb in and claim into itself. Like the abyss has spread so far that all of the planes and all of the layers that you can see in it are the worlds that fell to the demons that invaded and destroyed and took everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, the cool part about it is because it's, you know, we'll talk about devils most likely the next video because we want to talk about both groups of fiends.
Yep.
The cool thing about demons, and the reason I think we have this kind of enthusiasm for them, is the fact that it is so unstructured, yet in its own way has this weird like ranking system. But like there is no, you know, they don't know when a door opens to the material plane right away. It is happenstance that you see demons at all, unless they're directly summoned.
Yeah.
The chances of one being in the right place at the right time to find a rip into the material plane and be able to stay there, and then more of them find, like it's a slow process, which we'll touch on, but it's completely random. It is entirely
exactly like the
based
abyss
on
itself.
chance.
Yep.
Which is so intrinsically different than I think a lot of other groups of monsters that you would put in a D&D campaign and you would work with in a setting.
Exactly because that is the nature of demons and the abyss, right? They are meant to embody the chaotic evil alignment spectrum of the multiverse, right? In terms of like D&D's, you know, planescape structure, all of the different kind of planes of existence that you can kind of travel to and traverse to outside of the material plane that's in the center are usually there to represent a specific aspect of the alignment chart, right? Yeah. Neutral, good, evil, lawful, and chaotic. Yeah. Demons are specifically the chaotic evil alignment. And as such, all of their nature is supposed to be representative of that to the utmost degree. They are the complete apex epitome representation of chaotic evil. And that's what's so cool about them, especially how so many of the writers made them, is that they did a fantastic job, in my opinion, in showcasing that in almost every aspect of their culture, their mannerisms and behavior, despite the fact that they're all so different too in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, and the cool bit, as we look at some of we'll give examples as we go through, there are some of them that like don't really have a purpose to exist aside from like pure, like they are a pure manifestation of destruction. But then there are some that are like they have a very specific tie to one thing, and you're like,
that they like to do, and they do it like,
or like they do it for another being in the abyss, and it's like they have a direct connection, and you're like, huh. So there not only is every demon kind of this manifestation of the abyss itself, that there are certain entities in the abyss that are so powerful that there are beings that are created that are almost directly connected to them, which is another layer of how this works, and it makes it even more interesting.
Let's get into that a little bit as a matter of speaking. So the exact kind of structure and like devils also have this thing too, obviously to a much more specific kind of vibe, but demons also, despite their chaotic nature, have a hierarchical kind of system and how it works in terms of like how it happens. So essentially the lowest level of demon that you could possibly be usually are formed from like evil souls that were condemned or like cursed by the gods or shunned or whatever, or otherwise trapped in the abyss. They become what are known as mains. Mains are the unequivocal, indisputable weakest demon that you could possibly encounter. They are like, again, think of them like, you know, for Digimon or Pokemon, they are like the first level, right? They're like the the rookie Digimon.
They're the Weedle.
Or yeah, they're the Weedle of, or even like, you know, the Pichu or whatever of Pokemon, you know, like they're the first evolution, the weakest of them all. And obviously, one might imagine, being the weakest of the weak in the abyss,
not a good spot.
Not a great spot to be put in.
They do not live very long.
It is highly unlikely that they will survive unless for whatever reason, some miracle happens and like a stronger demon has taken some sort of liking to them and takes them under their wing to protect them, or potentially a person on the material plane or somewhere else summons them to that place. They're not very smart. They are not very anything. We can even showcase you their stat block real quick.
This is awesome. They have 1 positive stat.
Yep. Mains, Small Fiend, Demon, Chaotic Evil. They have an armor class of 9. They have 9 hit points on average. They can only move 20 feet per round. They have a -1 to their initiative. They have a strength of 10. That's just neutral. They have a dex of 9, so a -1. They have a con of 13, so like Sam said, that's a +1. Look at that. However, their intelligence is 3.
3 big ones.
Their wisdom is 8, and their charisma is 4. They pardon the pun here, not intentional. They are abysmal, dude. These are
ostensibly just people turned into wretches.
Like straight up, like they are the worst of the worst, and they get treated as such overall. Now, here's the thing. It's a super rare occurrence, but it is possible for demons in the abyss, should they be able to survive long enough, should they be able to successfully like defeat, consume other demons or creatures or beings or souls long enough, it is possible for a demon to, like Pokemon and Digimon, evolve into stronger versions. Another potential way that they can do that is specifically if a stronger demon is able, like a greater demon specifically, is able to provide some energy and power to literally forcefully transform them into a more powerful demon. However, this does take a considerable magical power to do so.
And most of the time it would usually be demon lords doing it that way.
Usually only demon lords. Like I would make the
greater demon could.
Hey, I would make the proposal that probably like Baylors or even like
the greater demons can summon other demons. So it's not within the realm of possibility to say
that they could most likely, but that would also take even more out of them than it would even a demon lord. So obviously, as you might surmise, not a lot of them are willing to do that much for very much.
Unless they really get something out of it.
They usually will only deign to do such a thing if they need this creature or a certain demon for a specific purpose. Like they might, for instance, transform a main or like a dretch into a quasit, for instance, when they need like an invisible spy to get like, you know, information and such, like they say right here. Another one would be like if they are planning a particularly big invasion or incursion on, like, say, the material plane or even against a rival demon lord, they might transform a couple of lower level demons into, like, I don't know, Balguras or something like that to shore up their forces, to make their army strong enough to take them out or to at least present a threat. Once again, though, this takes a lot of power, and it's not done lightly or without very specific intent and understanding that they are getting something of high value out of it.
Yeah, and the reality is and the reason it doesn't happen that often as well is the fact that why would I
want to potentially create?
Why would I risk raising other things around me closer to my level of power
and create a potential rival or threat to myself?
Because that's their main thing. Exactly. Is like they want to keep the power that they have. Because there's one thing I can say about demons is that their tenacity is admirable. What they have to go through to get a modicum of influence in the abyss is insane, is terrible. I mean, like, it is the worst thing you can imagine. And so if you are a wretch or a main, and even if you get to just being a Vrock, that is a huge difference in, you know, your possibility of
Oh
extending
yeah,
your
you
life.
know what?
But
Let's go ahead. Let's do a
yeah,
little bit of a comparison here from the main stat block to the rock stat block, real quick. So
yeah,
let's see. Mains are specifically 1/8 challenge rating. The
yeah.
cool thing, as a demon, however, they still do have resistance to all cold, fire, and lightning damage, and immunity to poison. However, you take that and you compare it to the rock demon, which is a challenge rating 6
Yeah, that's a
creature.
huge jump.
They have an armor class of 15, 104 hit points, a walking speed of 40 feet, and a fly speed of 60. Okay. They have a strength of 17, a dex of 15, a con of 18, an int of 8, a wisdom of 13, and a charisma of 8. So even right there, you see like that is an absolute ocean of difference.
Yeah.
Of power. And these guys are only challenge rating 6, right? Like they aren't even the cream of the crop of
And you could even,
demon
I mean, you could even look at somewhere in the middle there, like I'm gonna butcher all of these names. I'm so sorry.
kind.
The Bullzao, which is a challenging 3 demon,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the disease manifestation of animalistic rage. So they're like little goat. They're like goat people, like
And
pretty
it's
classic
yeah,
looking demons. Now, this is something like, well, for in our reality, we would refer to them as devils. In D&D, this is a whole different ballpark. But
yeah.
even just this change, even going from a 1/8 to a challenge rank 3, like you're now, you know, all of your stats except, well, a couple of your stats are going to be positives. You're going to have a lot more hit points, faster speed. You're going to have like actual natural weapons and abilities that you wouldn't have, because those the low level demons are literally just shitty people. They're just shitty, grotesque people. So
Yeah.
imagine you threw a bunch of farmers into the abyss and they got all weird and rotting and corrupted. That's what those are. That's
Yep.
it. There's no, like, they don't do anything special. The only thing they have is they have some damage resistances and immunity to poison and some condition immunities because they're not people anymore. But anything else, I mean, they don't even have good speed. They don't have really that great at, they don't notice things well. They have
Nope.
dark vision, but the abyss isn't lit up. It's the abyss. You need dark vision to even function, and dark vision doesn't, like, shitty dark vision doesn't replace good sight. And so, you know, I think the reality is how quickly there's only a couple low level demons. There's only a couple, like, just scrape the
Well,
bottom of the barrel
because
demons.
that I think that in essence it showcases, like, obviously if we want to go into like, you know, almost like in real life kind of thing, right? You have to take into account these creatures have to survive and
Oh
even
yeah.
potentially thrive in the most, or arguably the most tumultuous, dangerous, horrendous environment in the D&D cosmos, right?
And it makes sense. I mean, you look at what these creatures are coming from. A lot of the like mid-level demons, some of the demons you'd fight when you're like level 4, level 5, that are like a little bit more intimidating, a little bit scarier. Things that would, like, if this happened in a small town, the town would leave.
Slaughtered. They'd be slaughtered.
They'd be gone. And, you know, and these are like challenging 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
These are large, medium demons. They're not these ginormous creatures.
They're not even close to a
tearing...
demon lord. They're not even close
but
to
the jump is immeasurable because you look at each one of these beings is a manifestation of something. And these base level demons, I mean, they are the manifestation of cursed people. They're just cursed individuals. Whereas you go up to like a Quasit, which is challenging 1, you can kill them real easy, but they can turn invisible and scout. They have a purpose, you know. And so that's the immediate, when you start looking at these monsters, and as we go over more of them, each one fills a role in what you would assume is a batshit crazy society, because it was innate abilities and innate function tied to what their goal is.
Yep.
And so, you know, you might start out as a dretch or a main, and if whatever being you were before had some sort of innate skill or passion or like evil machination,
you would
there's
probably
a chance,
retain that. Like,
there's
to
a chance
extent.
you might end up as a different demon than the one sitting next to you in that pit. And
especially if you had like a connection to a more powerful demon
Yeah.
before you died. You know, that demon might be more at liberty to spawn you, ironically, as a more powerful demon to suit their purposes.
Yeah. Because
But
each one is a function. Like
each one
every
can
single one of
absolutely
them.
have a function, probably except for maybe the main. The main is the only one that's just like
But you need one of those.
they are just bottom of the barrel. Well, they're like the literal, they're the literal
lemurs. They're the lemurs of hell. Is the same thing.
Yeah. Lemurs of, well, that's the thing though, right? Like the mains are literally just like higher demons just like to eat them a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And if they get
eaten, you gotta find food,
they're just gone. They're just completely destroyed. Which is even worse as a main. You don't want to be a main, is what we're saying here. You do not ever want to be a main. And if you are a main, you want to quickly stop being a main as fast as is possible. But that being the point, here's the thing. To Sam's point, demons are all created to a certain extent for an actual purpose. And as we were kind of alluding to before, of the abyss, right? They are extinctions. They are manifestation of the abysses. I hesitate to say conscious, but we can even say subconscious desire to spread itself. That being the case, the abyss also has a tendency to do this itself, creating potential, like as we said, rifts or portals, not just inside of itself, but to every other plane of existence that there is. At least I feel like it can only really reach the negative or / neutral planes for the most part. I don't think the abyss can technically at present reach any of the positive planes of existence quite yet. But it certainly wants to, and it has to start somewhere. So it kind of is going from the ground up, you know? So that being the case, demons have that intrinsic nature in them as well. Anywhere where a demon is summoned, spawned, or somehow is able to transfer over to that other plane of existence, if they stay there long enough, they have the intrinsic innate ability to create an abyssal rift there.
Oh, it's so this is my favorite part.
They literally begin, as one would expect, depending on how powerful they are, of course, also plays a role and a factor. But even the least powerful, right? Even if you had mains and dretches, if they were able to remain in an area long enough, that area would start to have adverse effects just from their sheer corruption and malice that they exhibit as demons. The fauna and probably even the flora and the fauna would probably begin to die out or flee due to the toxicity. They might even begin to mutate and morph and shift into more malevolent, bastardized versions of themselves as the rift would begin to increase. A fully fledged demonic incursion takes time to develop. And we also want to specifically stipulate a true demonic incursion is not the same thing as, like, say, a demon lord was able to be summoned to the material plane and
that's not what that is.
Wreaks havoc for like a day or even like hell, a month maybe. Even that is like, okay, well, after a while, they're defeated, they go back to the abyss, or maybe they just leave for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. The world can recover from that pretty easily, right? The only thing, like, yeah, a lot of death and a lot of things probably happen, but it wasn't like a true incursion. What we're talking about is an actual literal 4-step process to how a true abyssal invasion occurs. Yeah. And that is specifically, again, if a demons are able to be summoned to an area, if they're able to kind of maybe hopefully clear out any unnecessary, inhabitants or whatever else, and remain in that area for long enough, the barrier between the abyss and whatever plane of inhabitants or existence that they are on weakens considerably. And at that point, much of it begins to get even worse. They specifically opens up a rift to a random location in the abyss, and any demons near that portal at that time can instantly begin to travel straight from the abyss into that reality, like a literal wave of just destruction, chaos, and death and malice.
But even then, that's not even really an incursion yet.
Not quite,
as horrible as it sounds.
Even with them, though, the abyss itself starts to seep through the cracks and then begins to empower, some might even say, the demons themselves, while also causing more permanent damage, because as we said, the abyss is considered to be infinite because what it does is it literally spreads and consumes everything and draws it into itself and literally reshapes anything. One thing to be aware of as well on that topic, say for instance, you as an adventuring party goes to the abyss, right? You're there for whatever reason to either hunt a demon, an artifact, an item, whatever your reason for being there. If you stay in the abyss for too long, it starts to have effects on you, whether you choose it to or not.
There's no choice.
The abyss, literally, by its very nature, corrupts, changes, mutates, and molds you into something, specifically a demon, that suits its desires and purposes of spreading. And that's why people believe that the abyss in and of itself has some semblance of sentience, because you literally, as you are there, even devils, even angels, any entity that goes there and stays too long in the abyss will begin to be changed by it permanently if you stay there too long. And that is, again, the same effect it has if the inverse happens. If the abyss is able to leak through into any other plane of existence, it will also begin to affect it irreparably. The only obvious caveat to this is no demons are really able to make use of the portal unless you can find where it is, right? It opens to a random layer of the abyss, and all demons begin to seep through and go through and start to destroy everything, which will then bring more attention, obviously, to that area. And so a lot of the time, this particular process is not necessarily easily avoided, but it can be stopped before it begins to get to the worst stages. I mean, Sam, if you'd like to,
I would love to talk about
kind of highlight some of the worst things that happen during this process.
We'll start kind of, because it's a tiered, as we said, it's like a 4-step plan. So at the beginning, it'll just be, a small rip, ostensibly, between the planes, and you'll have a demon or two, or a handful of them at most. And if you let them stay there, which can be months of time that they have to stay there for anything to happen, and they have to stay in the same area as well. They can't just go and it's basically a big square 6 miles on each side. They have to stay in this area.
And again, depends on how powerful the demons are.
I mean, they say for a demon lord it's about a month, but that's like at the epitome. That's the highest.
That's the highest power you can get.
So reality is, if you're unlucky, you'll have a more powerful demon that things will go a little bit faster. But even then, it's going to be more than a month.
It's going to take time.
It's going to be more than 2 months, most likely. The problem is, the reason it's so dangerous is that if you don't start getting rid of it right away, things can be problematic.
It's a literal infection.
The first stage is a couple months to a couple hundred years is how long it can. That's how much it can vary. The second stage is when that's when you actually have the portal open up completely. They've stayed there long enough. No one's killed them. No one's bothered them. Or the people that have tried have been killed. So now more demons are coming in because the portal is 100% there. It's not just a rift that is sometimes there, sometimes isn't. It is a fully open passage to the abyss. Now, what'll happen is, this is when you start having the region start to shift, more noticeably. You'll have weird weather. You'll have ash falling from the sky, stuff that you'll notice a whole region. There's a problem there. And you'll have a lot of, inanimate objects almost start looking animate. Mountain faces will turn it like a mountainside will turn into a twisted face of pain, and stuff like that. But this is still beatable. This is still something you can reverse.
No. You can still you can stop it at this stage.
Nothing is permanent. The problem with demons is that they don't work together well. Similar to a platoon of terrible recruit soldiers in an army, you need someone to direct them.
Yep.
But not just because they don't know how to work together, but because they will actively
They will actively kill each other, or just at least impede one another.
So
just because
you'll most likely have a demon that'll be in charge,
Yep.
whether it's the most powerful at the time or there's a couple vying for control, which means you'll have splintered groups and small different cliques of different demons, or ones who are like, I am the most powerful, and someone's right behind them like, you think, but it's gonna come. Time's gonna come, and I'm gonna take that spot.
Yeah, it was gonna be like, that's always the thing about like almost any fiendish society, right? Is there's always gonna be that little person behind that's gonna try and stab you in the back. But demons, absolutely, they cater to power. Absolutely.
And I will say as well, like the thing about demons, and the thing I think that makes them a little bit easier to approach from like a DM standpoint or running an encounter, is that they are not known for things like politics or subterfuge.
They don't make deals. They just
kill each other.
They just destroy. They are just destroyers. Yeah,
they'll make deals with. They'll technically make deals with people.
Only if they really have to.
Not in the traditional sense that when we say deals, we're talking about like devil contracts. We literally mean, I'll give you power if you go kill all the people in that village.
Yeah,
because they just want to see things burn.
Yeah,
but those are a whole different subset of demons. Those are real powerful ones. But what'll happen is, they'll fight each other to gain like the top spot in that area. But at this point, the connection is still fragile. If you go in there and kill enough of them, the portal will close.
Yeah.
They say, about half the number, it'll wink out of existence, and the demons will have no way to go back home.
Yeah, they can't run unless you send them back there.
Well, you have to kill them.
Yeah, when you destroy them. Yeah.
Now, what the real issue is if you let it get past that point. Now, obviously, this is been going on for months, years, if not a century. So if no one stopped at this point, you kind of deserve what's coming to you. The third phase is when the virus of the abyss fully cements itself, becomes
part of the world.
This isn't something that you can remove by killing the demons or closing the portal.
It won't work anymore.
Now there are magics, quite powerful ones that I think can alter that over time, but it is now a permanent part of the plane that you're on. You'll have the region that is corrupted is now bigger. These demons don't have to stay in the same place anymore.
No, they can continue to move now at this point.
The environment becomes even more lethal. Before you might have had storms where ash rained down. Now it's acid. Lit embers.
Yeah,
it's acid. It's blood. It's like it's people are getting sick.
It's literal nightmare fuel that you can think of. Like
the air is hard to breathe. You'll have if this happens,
it's
in a
smog.
small town,
there's a miasma. All
it's
around.
Bad. There's like plague. And enough. Obviously, the problem at this point is there's so many demons that they start coming into smaller groups and moving to new areas. If they move out of this area, if they stay in another area, they can start creating another incursion. And obviously they're starting from square one unless they have a very large group or they already have a
powerful demon with them.
But here's the slaying all the demons ends their direct threat. Of course, they're not there anymore, but the terrain remains twisted. The portal dormant, but still there.
Still there, but it's dormant. However, you can't get rid of it now, really.
Now, what you'd have to do is watch over it.
You have to make sure it stays dormant.
And that's
any ambitious, maybe cultists, or even apparently a random confluence of planar energy could potentially awaken the portal and start the affection.
And this
anew,
this is that classic fantasy trope where you have like a religious organization that keeps like a very powerful evil being locked away somewhere. Except this isn't something you can move.
Nope.
You can't really. How do I put it?
You can't
really you can't make it go away.
You can't shut the door when it's already been opened, right? Think of it almost like this is a door that was ripped off its hinges, right? And now it's just literally an open door now you can walk through.
Now
you can't close it now.
I think the idea is that they watch it and make sure no one's using it, because odds are when these demons that'll be finding it, they're going to be one at a time. It's going to be small, it's
for the most part.
It's occasionally you'll have a big deal come through, and that's why they're probably in D&D. There's probably histories of like whole orders of paladins or clerics that watch. Like, this is a full-time job.
Yeah.
There is the Oath of the Watchers paladin. Like, that's something that you would do for a lifetime.
Yep.
You are good enough in battle, and they can trust you. You're not corrupted. That this is your full-time job.
Yep. Just to
8 hours a day, a whole shift
this.
of watching a dormant portal to the abyss, which I'm assuming that also kind of has an effect on people as well.
It's because the abyss is still there, and therefore, while it won't have probably as intense or detrimental of effect as it would be if you were on the actual plane of the abyss itself, you're no doubt probably going to suffer from like nightmares, paranoia, probably insomnia,
even sickness.
I will say the one thing that obviously paladins would have is they're immune to like disease. Yeah. And so that would be another reason why you would have paladins be the guardians of this kind of thing too. But even they're not, again, immune to like mental attack in the way that the abyss would most likely be doing so, especially in that area. Like,
and I think the main thing for me is not everybody that is in these places is a powerful being. Not everybody's going to be immune to these effects. And so I think this is another wonderful example of a way to throw this into a game. It's a pre-existing portal. Your group had nothing to do with this. It happened 100 years ago.
It's just there.
But now this whole town is known as this. There's something off here, and like this weird super secret, order of paladins. But like, notice some of the younger members, some of the less powerful ones, their look is always dour. Their eyes are almost more sunken.
They're gaunt and like maybe even kind of slightly like malnourished and such.
Because it's sucking away the vitality.
And here's also the interesting part about that too for GMs is like, again, like Sam said, if you have this already pre-established abyssal gate, like we already said, if this has happened before, it is not outside the realm of plausibility or possibility for, let's say, a demon lord to have heard about this gate and to specifically this time around plan an actual true invasion to utilize this gate to establish themselves. Okay.
Now, it's hard to do that with the way that everything is so random in the abyss. But if it's a gate that's been there for hundreds of years,
it's been there for a while. These are machinations, again, centuries in the making.
Odds are someone knows where it is, and someone has told someone who's more powerful.
And they have gone to great effort to obtain either that layer of the abyss, or if that layer of the abyss just so happens to be already dominated by a demon lord, then they have more than ample opportunity to plan. All they got to do is cause they got to cause just a little confluence of planar
not even that. Technically they can just walk through.
I mean, it's dormant, so it needs to activate first. So it's like it's literally like, it's like, oh hey, the door is like,
all it says is that it to ensure that it remains unused. So the portal is no longer spraying out, the abyss into the material plane, but it still exists.
Yeah.
If a demon happens to walk by at the right time, it can waltz on through.
Yeah.
Which is a inane concept. Obviously, if you get a high enough wizard, you have someone who's there every day to go cast Wall of Force or like a dome over
something,
to keep things trapped, but that's a finite resource.
And it also depends on how big the portal is, because they might not be able to even cover the full portal with a Wall of Force. You'd
hope that if you catch it early enough, it's not as big, but the longer it sits there, the bigger it is.
Well, that's the thing. If it becomes a permanent fixture at that point,
it's pretty damn big.
I would have to believe it's big enough to allow a demon lord through, many of which are huge creatures.
Well, keep in mind the way the abyss functions to me is that once a demon lord even thinks about going through that portal, it's gonna start to fracture like as they walk through anyway. It doesn't really matter what size it starts out as, in my opinion. For me personally, I think making it 10 feet tall is viable. But like the moment a demon lord's like, oh, look at
hey, what's that?
The moment they put their big toe through that portal, it's as big as they need it to be.
So let's go ahead, let's go ahead and touch a little bit upon what that looks like when a demon lord begins to utilize such an incursion.
So let's go to the final phase of
the final fourth phase of the abyssal incursion.
So this has been around for a while. It's been used. Maybe they fought it off. Maybe they've it's dormant now. But if as it gets more powerful, more powerful beings start to notice, and so you'll have demon lords at some point in an incursion's path to this point, like they'll notice that it's there.
The abyss will most likely almost direct them to it like a beacon, where it's like, hey, this needs to happen now.
Which is kind of it's a cool thing, because now you're looking at these demon lords as they are the true extensions
of the abyss. Like they are the abyss's best tools
to the point where they're
what it needs.
They're powerful enough to form it to their will, more or less. And so this is kind of the end all be all. This is a demon lord visits the material plane, or whatever plane this happens to be on. This is a cataclysmic event.
It is apocalyptic,
because not only is it just death and destruction, the fact of the matter is that most demon lords you won't even be able to stand in the presence of. We talk about fighting gods, or when we did the dragons episode, fighting those like crazy avatar dragons. These are that. I mean, this is like the general public will die looking at these beings. Like it's insane.
Yeah, their minds will collapse in on themselves for not being able to comprehend what they've seen. And you don't get it twisted either. What's interesting too about this particular event is it has the possibility, not a high one, mind you. This is very low and rare, but you could potentially have multiple demon lords use
odds
this
are
gate.
Odds are they would fight each other before they even had claim over it.
Usually one of them, like, yes, two of them or maybe more might fight over it until one of them claims it for themselves. But sometimes, again, if the abyss demands it of them,
there's some
they will momentarily put aside their differences. Like if they believe that there is a legitimate chance they can claim this reality, this plane for the abyss, that is one of the absolute like few times that demon lords would be like, fuck it, let's go. Let's like they will put their shit aside and they will head in there and just, because that's the thing. That is one of the biggest aspects about demons. Demons probably have the most prolific, like they're powerful, but their biggest strength is their numbers. They are innumerable. They are immeasurable. And if they choose to work with one another, there would be almost all that almost any other power in the omniverse could do to really stop them. But that's offset by the weakness of like we said, they rarely ever work together. They hate each other.
So much time.
Like, and it takes so much time. Which to them it wouldn't matter because demons are immortal. But the problem being is that you have to first take the time to coordinate, and in that time, not have anybody, betray somebody else or do some other messed up stuff that makes everybody else angry, and then they start fighting again because you can't trust any demon. You can't trust each other. And so like that's how they offset that thing.
So you've royally screwed up. You now have a demon lord in the material plane. There are one of two outcomes. One outcome is you manage to defeat it or convince it to leave one way or another. Usually that would just be defeating it or giving it something it wants. But realistically, it's just you have to somehow push it back through the portal. And that's a hard thing to do, even for an experienced group of adventurers. It is definitely a BBEG level event.
It's because again, what you also need to understand is with the presence of a demon lord, every other demon beneath them in the world at that point will listen to them. They become much more coordinated. They become much more effective in their invasion and their tactics. They're no longer just like a mindless, horde of destruction.
It is an organized group of death.
Now. Because that's the one thing. Demon lords, no matter, unless you're, even among demon lords, they have a hierarchy. But if you're a demon lord and no other demon lords are present, every demon listens to
regardless of if that demon has a connection to another demon lord, it does not matter.
Like unless
You
they're
could
like
argue
intrinsically tied, like
there's a couple, I think, some greater demons you
there
could make
are
an argument
there are
for.
very few exceptions to that rule. There are some demons that are like, we pledge only allegiance to this particular demon lord.
But even then,
they're not gonna.
They want to be there,
Yeah,
and they know it's
they want this. They want the abyss to take this place, so they would
So-
still probably work with them if they were there.
the two options are you kill you somehow quell the demon lord, you put it back to the abyss. Now, what then happens is all those demons that were now organized run rampant, and chaos ensues.
It is literally your only hope.
But-
you have to get rid of the demon lord.
But
That's
the
your only
reality
hope.
is either you sacrifice, all the people that they're going to kill to that whole horde of destruction, and you defeat the demon lord. If you don't, and the demon lord stays there for a long enough time, you don't have a plane anymore.
No.
It becomes another layer of the abyss.
It's the abyss now,
Yeah.
and you are
at oops, all abyss.
oops, all abyss, and you are at that point truly and wholly screwed. It doesn't matter. You are going to become demons now. That's just what's going to happen, and
not right away, but
not right away. And that's kind of the worst part about it. You don't even instantly change. You're going to go through a long, horrendous
process.
time and process, and chances are you might not even remember what happened before. Maybe you will. Maybe that's even worse. You will remember what happened and the things that went wrong and everything that happened. But now you don't really care anymore because you're a demon. And most likely underneath that demon lord who took your lair. Like that is now that demon lord's lair of the abyss.
If you're me,
these things are so freaking cool, man.
If you're me, that's why you have a wizard with wish in the back pocket to attempt to reverse one event in history, and hopefully give you a second chance.
Hey man,
if that doesn't work, guess what? You better have some sort of planar travel spell on deck, because you're gonna live on a different plane now.
Something that's where
I would do.
That's where you pull every card out of the deck of anything. That event right there.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like
you might as
well screw it. I'm pulling every single card.
Now if you're me, and you play a lot of characters that have terrible things that they do, you just go live in the plane of fire or the Nine Hells or the Feywild.
Yeah, I mean you're likely in the plane of fire. If you go to like the city of brass, you're likely to get enslaved. Unless
you're some sort of powerful, weird individual.
Yeah, you need to be powerful, but otherwise you'd be enslaved.
You know what? I'm gonna say,
hopefully, go to the plane of air. Plane of air is really fun. Go to the Feywild. There's probably a lot of weird stuff that'll happen there.
Yeah, but like
I would recommend the Shadowfell unless you know like a Shadar Kai maybe, but like
I wouldn't recommend going there unless you know what you're doing. But the reality is you as an individual might be able to survive this feat, and hopefully you're a high enough level to deal with a problem like this. But if you can't, there is no let's find a new material plane. And look, that would be a cool campaign. I'd play in that campaign. If a DM
possible. For instance, if you have that one spell, Dream of the Blue Veil, right? You could go to Greyhawk instead.
Go to Eberron.
Yeah, go to Eberron. Go to Ravnica. You could do that if you have that.
That'd be cool. Now, I'll put it this way: if a DM throws this at you and you're like a level 13 party, your first instinct should be get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, you're not going to do anything about it. And now that's a cool storytelling moment.
Yeah.
Because now there is you think, burning down your home is bad. A dragon burns down your home. Oh, that sucks. That is a
demon lord
took my plane.
Literally took your reality. They claimed your reality of existence.
Yeah. Now,
for themselves.
Again, I'm gonna say this. I will say this 100 times. I am one of those players that I have weird spells prepared that other people don't prepare, and this is another number one reason why, if my character has access to it, I'm taking demi-plane, because I can leave the plane and I can think of what I'm gonna have to do next. But it gives me a chance to get away from this. Plane shift, demi-plane,
demi-plane. I Dream of the Blue Veil.
Anything that gets you not on the material plane.
Arcane Gate.
Yeah. Well,
is it just Gate? Is it Arcane Gate or just Gate?
Those are both just teleporty spells, aren't
they? There's a 9th level spell, I believe, that's like literally you can create a planar portal to another plane of existence, and you can even call something through it or go through it yourself. Like there is one of those. I forget if it's like Arcane Gate or like just gate.
Now I need to know, because
Yeah.
well, now we got to give them their contingencies.
Yeah,
here.
something. You gotta have something in mind for when this disaster happens. Like, yeah, gate. Gate is a
Gate.
ninth
It's
level
gate.
spell. Yep. So yeah,
But that's kind of the what we're talking about here. This is a cataclysmic event. This is a campaign ending event.
yeah.
Unless this is a
is
planned thing by your DM, and because they want you to try to survive somewhere, or you messed up and you didn't go fight those demons when he told you about them 80 sessions ago.
Yep.
I think,
And they just stayed there.
that's why I like demons as a monster. While devils are more in your face and like trying to convince you to do things,
they're
demons
more
are like
enmeshed in the party dynamic, but demons,
like, we're gonna be over here doing our own thing until
Yeah.
we're powerful enough to kill everyone.
demons are literally like, you need to go handle that problem now.
Yeah,
like now.
Even hearing, even if you're a level 17 party, you're approaching end game, and you hear about some sort of small demon infestation. Wow,
Now.
I just hit reverse puberty saying demon, but
Demon.
demon. Even as a a high level party, if you're hearing about it, you need to go take care of it.
You need to go take care of that
Because
right now, dude.
If you have a crafty
if you
DM,
procrastinate for too long,
oh, you're screwed.
Here's the thing. Here's even how I would play it, right? Because once again, because it is so heavily predicated on exactly what kinds of demons are currently nesting there.
Oh yeah.
I would be rolling like, all right, let's do a percentage dice. Exactly how powerful, because there's nothing that specifically says that you can't necessarily jump from stage 1 immediately to stage 4 if a demon lord just so like if that tear like instantly emanates like right in a demon lord's like domain, who's to say that he can't literally just start sending powerful demons through until the abyssal portal becomes strong enough where they themselves can then move through for stage 4? Like, they could just do that. Again, the chance of that happening are astronomically low. I mean, maybe. We don't really have much of a baseline to compare the statistics or the probability of that happening, because it's just completely random. So it's like, if you did like literally, let's you know what? Well, I'll even be fair, and I'll just be like, on a D100 roll, you'd have to roll a literal like 100 for like the planar gate or whatever to appear like close to a demon prince or demon lord, for them to be like, okay, hey, you guys go like send. What if he just sends Baylors through? He just sends through like 1 or 2 Baylors into that area, and they just chill there for a month or two, because Baylors are almost on the level of demon lords at that point, so they wouldn't need to be there for very long at all. And there's very few things that could possibly hope to contest against them like that. And so that's the thing. It's like I as a GM, I would just be rolling percentage dice and being like, okay, how powerful are the demons that are currently coming through right now? And then how fast are they necessarily going to be spreading the abyss? Like, and that's the thing. To be fair, your party might not be as aware of that thing. I would say for GMs, like, if something has happened like this in the world before, it would be a pretty big thing. Like, I think most people would know about the stories and tales of like
you would have entire organizations
the
dedicated.
abyssal gate, the abyssal portal instance. Like, it's like, so I would be like, yo, if your players know about this, and if you're even as a GM planning this kind of like event or story, then you should provide your players who maybe don't have as much in-world knowledge, insight and understanding of like, this could be bad. Like, like your characters have all heard the story of what happened over in like, Livington or whatever, or Riverton or whatever, where an abyssal gate formed and nobody did anything about it for a long time, or it happened and nobody was aware of it until it was too late. And now there's a permanent portal there.
And like, the reality is that if something like that happens, there is a fear, a palpable fear, at something like that happening again. You look at every horrible thing that's happened in like human history. when it looks like those things are going to repeat themselves is a terrifying notion for people that weren't even there, you know. And so that is something that like you have to definitely like present. I think it's a fair thing to assume that if something like this almost happened one time and there was a portal somewhere being watched by an ever-changing roster of paladins and clerics and important people that were magically inclined, there is a reason for it, and society knows it's there. It is not secret. There might be some secret part of it, but they know it's a real problem.
It's an actual threat. It's a real threat. I will say though, there are also obviously those people in society who are like in denial about that, right? They pretend like they're like, hey, no, this isn't nearly as bad as they said. Like, how? No, we have gone for hundreds of years now without this being an actual problem or issue. So what are the odds of that actually happening, right? They want to pretend like this isn't a real issue that could happen because they're most likely scared of the reality. If this could really happen, because it's a terrifying
or my other favorite thing is that there are people who want it to happen for whatever reason and pretend like it's not a big deal and convince others
they manipulate you and pretend like, yeah, you shouldn't be worried about it.
And this is like, this is a huge problem. Now, the funny thing is, we'll talk about some of the different demons. There are some that can vastly accelerate this process.
I was gonna say,
are you familiar with the alkylith?
Yes, I am familiar with the alkylith.
I'm not going to go over all of its things. It's ostensibly an extension. It's a ooze type monster that can make itself look like moss. And it'll sit on doors and windows and it hides literally in plain sight. And if it stays there for long enough, it can create fully formed
a portal to the abyss. That
fully formed.
It's so cool because it's literally almost like, think of it almost like, I don't know if you are familiar. Like, have you ever seen the show Chalk Zone, Sammy?
No.
So there was like an old, I believe it was Nickelodeon show called Chalk Zone, where like this kid had this thing of magical chalk, and he could literally like if he drew like a circle, it would open up a portal to the place known as Chalk Zone, and it would basically be like a world entirely comprised of different beings and creatures and things that were created from chalk by like children, people, artists, whatever.
And like they manifested.
Yeah, and like they manifested in that world. And so this is that is, but it's like that. So is Chalk Zone, to be fair. But like,
you know how white I am. I go to Harold and the Purple Crayon first.
That is like, I love that with the alkylith, because it's literally like they just need to find like an opening of some sort. Even if it was like the small little mouse hole, if they like literally just formed around that little mouse hole, it could create a portal to the abyss. Like, they're so cool in that way, and they literally can stay there. And again, when they are immovable, they're almost indistinguishable from like maybe moss or like fungus or like something natural that occurs.
And the thing is that at maximum, it only has to stay there for 36 days.
Yep.
That is if it rolls very poorly on its 66 days.
Yeah. It can potentially go even faster than that.
It could potentially be somewhere in the middle. It could be 3 days.
It could be 3 days.
Well, not 3 days. It'd have to be 6 days.
Oh, yeah.
1 day per dice.
Okay.
The reality is that if you get unlucky and one of those portals, because here's the funny thing. No one summons these things because it's dangerous, because you can't control it when it makes a portal. And people who are summoning demons, they want to have some sort of power over the one.
Yeah.
And if you're going to summon one, you're not going to summon one that's going to open up an irreparable rift into the abyss. And so, these creatures, it takes a while for them to leave the abyss, but when they do, that exponentially increases the risk of things going to shit.
Because they're permanent portals. They're not even just
when I first saw this monster years ago, when I was looking at like the Blood War and stuff like that, when Mordenkainen's first came out, I thought that this was a temporary portal while the creature lived. No, it's just permanent. There.
It's there now,
and so
it can literally go there, stay there, make the portal, leave, and then go make a portal somewhere else.
So you have something there. It's something that would normally take months, years, and now all you need is one demon, albeit a challenge rating 11 demon.
They're powerful. They're rare.
it's probably not the first one that's going to come out of an already existing portal. But the
No.
reality is that
Again,
you can have something that should take years, centuries even, to get to
centuries
this point.
sometimes.
It happens in 36 days.
And
So if
again, you have more powerful demons coming through, that portal expands.
Well, my also the way I look at it, if you have alkalists coming through, that means there are other more outwardly destructive demons that are going to take your attention to go destroy them. So
the
that portal
alkalith leaves. Yep.
Because if you're not careful and you don't pay attention, you don't catch it. So now you have to go deal with these more outwardly aggressive, destructive demons, right? So you go over to this, you find this portal, you kill these demons. They've gotten pretty powerful, but it's reversible. You shut it down. But now nobody knows 6 miles over that way in a cave somewhere or an abandoned mine that nobody goes into. Huh, looks a little green around the edges, doesn't it? And a month later, you have a fully fleshed portal to the abyss in a completely different place, spilling out completely different hordes of demons.
Yep.
And so, and I would argue these monsters are directly connected to, what is it, Jubilex?
Jubilex, yeah. Because they're more like they're like
bits of
oozes.
him that come off of him.
Yeah. So Jubilex, yeah. So like that, I hesitate to say whether or not that's good or bad in terms of
the way I look at it is they're more directly connected to a demon lord, which means the timetable, you could argue, might be accelerated for that specific demon lord coming through that portal. And so that's why these things are so like, oh no. If you find a demon somewhere, that is a really bad problem. Because the devils, they have their space. The other fiends, they have the space. Yugoloths and some of the other fiends that aren't demons, they have their own place to be. They're here for a completely different reason, whether it's money, souls, magic, whatever. But they have a place that they go back to. You know where the demons don't want to be? The abyss. It sounds funny. They don't want to be there. They want to come over here and do crazy stuff. And it's funny because
the abyss sucks, dude. Like
what's funny is they want to leave the abyss and wreak havoc.
Except for demon lords.
They want to leave the abyss and wreak havoc with the understanding that eventually it's all going to be the abyss. Yep. So it's a weird, like the way it's weird, but if you're going to think like that, it's so easy for this to roll.
For instance, like the reason I want to do that is because if they can leave the abyss, they have a higher chance of devouring and eating other souls to make themselves more powerful, right? We talked about that at the beginning. That's their biggest motivation too. Is like, hey, if I can maybe, kill enough things and devour enough things and absorb enough stuff, I can grow more powerful and therefore increase my standing in the abyss, right? The more powerful you are, the better your life. Again, eventually every demon's wish is to eventually become a demon lord, either by destroying a current one and usurping them, taking their place, or by manifesting themselves enough. Like the abyss will literally, if it recognizes you, it can make you a demon lord. So if you are able to distinguish yourself, if you're able to embody the abyss's desire enough, it might just recognize you in some capacity and elevate you to an even higher state, excuse me. But dude, demons are crazy, man. Let's go talk a little about that real quick. As a matter of fact, since we've talked about the incursion, we talked a little bit about some other. Let's talk more about them as actual individual monsters. Some of the most infamous demons as we kind of go up the ladder here. Let's see. What are some of the most kind of infamous demons you might encounter? Like, obviously, we talked a little bit about the Quasit. The Quasit is a good one, I think, to talk about a bit. Quasit is essentially, it is a CR1 monster, very, very light. It's tiny. It can honestly be another very common familiar that like warlocks or other individuals can summon as familiars. They have armor class of 13, 7 hit points, a strength of 5, a dex of 17, a con of 10, an intelligence of 7, a wisdom of 10, and a charisma of 10. And so, like, as you see, like, they're not really much to write home about. Again, as we stated earlier, a lot of demon lords or even like spellcasters will use them mostly as information gatherers and like stealthy, infiltrators, for specifically because they have the ability to, one, shape change. they can polymorph themselves into a beast form of some sort that like resembles a bat or a centipede or a toad or whatever else kind of in that vein. They also have the innate ability to go invisible as much as they want.
Yep.
Which makes, again, their ability to get away, to hide, to gather information, like exceedingly powerful. They are not very powerful combatants, but for that particular reason, they are quite helpful. Now, they are considered to be, again, still towards the bottom of the totem pole in regards to demon kind. Let's see what are some more. Let's see here.
Well, one of my favorites, just in general, is I think something that you could conceivably come in contact with, in a lower level D&D campaign is the Knoll variants. So like the Knoll Fang of and like the Flind, which are ostensibly tiers. Well, I can't say that I hate that I'm just bad at saying the names. Yinogu? Yinogu. Okay.
And I also misspoke before. The Ooze Demon Lord is Juiblex, not Jubilex. Juiblex is
Juiblex, yeah.
And then that's
it's almost like if I look at it and look at it how it's spelled and then think about it for a second.
It can help. Not always, but it can help.
But that's so one of the Demon Lords is intrinsically related to the Knolls. It's like they're ostensibly their god.
It is their god. Yeah, he is their literal progenitor. Like he created Knolls.
So Knolls, obviously, they're not demons per se, but they're kind of their own thing. But to me, they're demon. They're demons. Now the normal Knolls, they die like normal. They don't go to the abyss. Certain Knolls that are especially bloodthirsty, especially powerful, once a generation type Knoll, will get ostensibly boons from their creator, and the more powerful they get, the more bloodthirsty they are. They eventually ostensibly become demons, where like if they die, they don't die in the material plane, they go to the abyss.
They go to the abyss and become part of Yinogu's pack.
And the crazy part about that is they're probably the only creature that natively appears in the material plane for whatever magic reason from the hyenas and stuff like that wants to go to the abyss. Their goal is to be so bloodthirsty, and this primal call of the hunt that they have to pull them back to where their progenitor lies.
Yep.
They were not demons when they were born.
Nope.
From whatever weird process they're born from, it is not the same as other demons, but they can end up just like all the other ones, albeit,
I mean,
the moment they get there, they're already at a better standing.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're already more powerful usually in that regard, because again, obviously, like Sam said, and what's cool too is you can actually see a little bit of this in almost real time in the game Baldur's Gate 3. You encounter them in Act 1 on the northern side of the first kind of map. And in essence, it's like, Knolls can either be created by like dark abyssal like rituals that cultists can get from Yinogu, right? All the demon lords have cultists like that revere them for whatever reason, respect them and want them, and or specifically just beckon them for power, right? And any cultist of Yinogu specifically beckon him for those ancient rituals that can transform them into Knolls. The other way is Knolls can also from hyenas. Just again, like Sam said, an actual creature that just exists and is created on the material plane can create more Knolls from an actual hyena itself.
There's a couple of different ways. I mean, obviously there's magic rituals, but even you can technically create more Knolls by feeding hyenas the kills that they make. So these bloodthirsty, violent kills of people and beasts and whatever is in front of them, if they keep hyenas, they capture them and tame them and keep them hungry and ravenous, and then feed them the blood and flesh from all of these kills, they can make more Knolls.
Yep. They can,
which is a terrifying idea.
It is.
And there is a weird, gross, painful process, and
it's really nasty, but it's very reminiscent of demons, though, and Yinogu especially.
And they are demonic in origin from their original thing, but now they're their own species on the material plane.
Yep.
So in theory, I guess if you really wanted to, you could hunt every gnoll down and call their population. At any point in time, their lord from the abyss can just make a new hyena into a
Exactly.
gnoll. It's
Exactly.
an
Well,
unstoppable.
the irony of it too being is depending on how powerful they are, you kill them on the material plane, they
don't.
just
Yeah,
go
they'll come
back.
back.
They'll just go back to the abyss, and then they can come back.
Yeah, and they'll make new
Afterwards.
ones.
And they'll make more.
But there's a couple different, there's like baseline gnolls,
Another,
which
yeah.
aren't very powerful. They're
No,
one
they're
half.
like orcs. They're like goblins. They're the same vein as like orcs and goblins, essentially. But the really powerful ones are like they are the true embodiment of Yinogu and follow, like they call, the sons and daughters of Yinogu or whatever. Like they are truly heinous individuals. Other kind of like mid to lower level demons that are still very popular that you might encounter would be like the Balgura, or the Barlgura is how you pronounce it. The Barlgura. It's essentially like a big giant kind of like mix between like an orangutan slash not a howler monkey, is it? Like what are those monkeys
It's more
in
like
Tarzan?
it's more like a gorilla and orangutan.
Well, no, because even like it's the blueness of it is more reminiscent of like what are those is it howler monkeys like in the movie Tarzan when they're like running away from those monkeys? I forget what they're called.
You're asking
They're
me?
like, yeah,
I've never seen Tarzan.
How have you never seen Tarzan?
I don't know. I didn't see the appeal of Ooga. I'm good.
It's not howler monkey. Tarzan monkey.
They're monkey-esque demons.
Yeah, they're like giant gorilla monkey-esque demons, like where it's like,
oh, they even say a Balgura looks like a hulking orangutan with
Yeah.
a gruesome drooping visage.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically almost like a mixture between apes, like almost like silverback gorillas, and orangutans. They're like
way bigger.
Yeah, they're way bigger. They are large fiends. So they are huge. I mean, not huge, but you know what I mean. They are big. They are bad. They're probably one of the most, like, for instance, they're one of the most common demons you can summon yourself as a player. Like when you get like the ability to summon lesser demons, this would be probably one of them that is layered out and one of the most common. They're very dangerous. They have a strength of 18, a dex of 15, a con of 16, an intelligence of 7, a wisdom of 14, and a charisma of 9. You'll see that there is a little bit of a theme here that demons are not particularly smart or charismatic for the most part. They're very specific ones, and those ones are usually probably more so directly tied to like Gratz or maybe even like Frazer Blue. Frazer Blue, because they are the more intelligent. But most demons are by design meant to not really be very intelligent or care. They're there to destroy shit and mess shit up. All demons, however, well, maybe not all, the vast majority, if not all have those sweet elemental resistances though. Like that's awesome. That is one of the biggest aspects of like demon kind that makes them so annoying to deal with. Is it's just like fire,
fiends in general. A lot of them.
Interestingly enough, like not all devils though. Like certain devils do not have like resistance to like fire, lightning, and cold. A lot of them do, but like demons, even the lowliest of demon, still has resistance to cold, fire, and lightning, and immunity to poison. It's just crazy, and that's again why like demons are also so annoying, because even with spells, all your best offensive spells, evocation, are always those elements for the most part, and they will just shrug through that shit for a lot of it. Let's see.
We already talked about prepared.
Literally, we already talked a little bit about the Vrak, which is another pretty common demon specifically. Let's see. A Glabrezu is another pretty well-known demon. Specifically, they are a bit more powerful. They're challenge rating 9, whereas the Bargura was challenge rating 5. These guys are kind of like almost a mix between almost with a draconic kind of head, but with like giant pincers for arms, and then like smaller, like kind of normal arms. They're almost like an enlarged kobold with giant like pincers on top. So they're like, if you've ever seen the show Ben 10, they're like forearms. They have 4 appendages, but like their top arms are like way bigger, giant pincers. They have the bottom like normal arms, and then they have almost like a a kobold kind of head on top. They have a strength of 20, a dex of 15, a con of 21. Now, here's the thing. They break the mold where their intelligence is 19, their wisdom is 17, and their charisma is 16. These guys are not someone you want to screw around with lightly. Glabrezus they are some gnarly ass demons. They have an armor class of 17, 157 hit points, and a speed of 40 feet. As always, they got that sweet cold, fire, and lightning resistance, as well as resistance against any normal attacks that are non-magical. So bludgeoning, piercing, slashing that are non-magical. They have true sight on top of that to 120 feet, and telepathy as well. And they're also innate spellcasters on top of that. So you see, even with that, these things are just at challenge rating 9, that's still pretty high. That's pretty powerful. Still, again, middle of the road for what demons can really do. And this guy already is a force to be reckoned with, right? It's kind of stupid. Let's see. Yeah, no, what are some other fun demons? Ooh, the Nabasu is a fun one too. Nabasu would be even more powerful, and these things are, in essence, I wouldn't say necessarily your kind of default almost image that you think of with demons, but kind of. They are very reminiscent of they are black all over, giant bat-like wings, giant bat ears, with little horns, glowing eyes. They are essentially almost, they're like a giant bat demon is the best way to kind of describe them. But they have an armor class of 18. They have 190 hit points, a speed of 40 feet walking, and a fly speed of 60. They have 22 strength, 14 dex, 21 con, 14 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 17 charisma. They have all the usual resistances and immunities, telepathy. They have dark vision, so they don't have true sight. But they have some pretty cool innate abilities. One being demonic shadows. The Nabasu darkens the area around its body in a 10-foot radius. Non-magical light can't illuminate this area of dim light. They also have been really known as Devour Soul. A Nabasu can eat the soul of a creature it has killed within the last hour, provided that creature is neither a construct or an undead. The devouring requires the Nabasu to be within 5 feet of the corpse for at least 10 minutes, after which it gains a number of hit dice, D8, equal to half the creature's number of hit dice. Roll those dice and increase the Nabasu's hit points by the numbers rolled. For every 4 hit dice the Nabasu gains in this way, its attacks deal an extra 1d6 of damage on a hit. The Nabasu retains these benefits for 6 days. A creature devoured by a Nabasu can be restored to life only by a wish spell. They also have magic resistance as well. Now, again, they are a CR 15 creature, as you can imagine. These guys, that in and of itself, just having again, our earlier example, you have an Alkalith open up a gateway, and you just have a number of Nabasu start flying through into an area, and they just start decimating the local populace of a small village. These things will just start to literally buff themselves up by eating and devouring all of their kills, and will have these abilities for at the very least 6 days, if not longer. Their health and attack will be increased exponentially by the time that any adventurers show up to deal with them. That's
if you're not careful, it's a slippery slope with these things.
And it's not even just them. There are more they would be more than just that. You also should we I think we should talk about another very powerful prominent demon in the abyss known as a Cybriex. Are you familiar with a Cybriex?
We talked about it in our horror episode.
We did talk about it in our horror episode.
One of my favorite monsters.
Indeed. Cybriex is great. You know what? We talked about Cybriex, I think, in the horror episode, so we can probably leave that out then, I believe. Because Cybriexes are again, they're some of the most powerful demons in the Abyss, like specifically demon lords, love to keep a Sybriax for the amount of knowledge and information and insight that they can provide, as well as their powers.
Here's, if we're gonna get closer to quote unquote, like we're approaching demon lord territory.
Yeah.
Maybe we should. Here's a good example of one. Again, Mollydeus. It's a challenge rating 21. It's a huge fiend.
Mollydeus?
Yeah. Mollydeus, thank you.
Yeah.
Mollydeus. But you're getting to the point where now these are beings who serve directly under demon lords.
They're huge, dude. These are huge.
This is it's a 12-foot tall bipedal body with a wolf's head and a fanged serpent head also. And it can speak and see through the serpent head. They are used as like direct speakers for a demon lord, guard treasures, and act as field generals ostensibly for a demon lord. So these things are powerful. We're looking at 28 strength, 22 dex, 25 con, everything's in the 20s, 21 intelligence, 24 wisdom, 24 charisma.
Nothing is below a 21.
They can't be blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, poisoned, stunned, resistant to cold, fire, lightning, and all the normal stuff.
True sight,
legendary resistances,
magic resistance.
Yeah, these things are this is what also you get to the point of they can summon other demons. This is how powerful these things are. And so, even if
they have spell casting innately,
even if a demon lord doesn't walk through a portal, one of these things does.
If a Mollydeus does, then that's
a bad omen, because that means there's one on the way.
There is a demon lord on the way. Exactly. If a Mollydeus walks through that portal, there is a demon lord not too far behind them. These things are crazy. Holy crap. I'm not familiar with these ones. Oh my lord.
Look, there's even more layer. There's Baphomet.
Yeah, no, well, that's what I'm saying. That starts getting into the actual demon lords. And so you know what? We've showcased a little bit. And for the Mollydeus, let's go ahead and actually just see what is their challenge rating. Their challenge rating is 21. So they are absolutely the cream of the crop, right below that. And you know what? Because we talked about them, let's talk about their other counterpart, the Baylor. Because Baylors would also probably be considered literally the one step below demon lord would be a Baylor. Baylors. Ironically, though, the Mollydeus is a higher challenge rating, which is interesting. Because they have higher stats. But Baylors, like many of you might be able to draw the parallels, is D&D's answer to Lord of the Rings Balrog.
Yeah.
They initially wanted to I believe they initially called him Balrog, but because of, copyright issues, they changed it and instead switched the name for Balrog to Baylor. And these things are the true, almost quintessential demonic archetypes you can think of, right? They are big. They got big bat-like wings. They're huge creatures, by the way. With horns protruding from their head as they roar, like the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. They have glowing eyes and a fiery mouth of fire. They have the ability to conjure fire whips and lightning swords just in their hands. They're not even physical. They can just make that shit. They're giant, red-skinned demons, and they are considered the true, lieutenants, or right hands of the demon lords, along with the Mollydeus. They have an armor class of 19. They have 262 hit points, of walking speed of 40 feet, and a flying speed of 80, a strength of 26, a dex of 15, con 22, intelligence 20, wisdom 16, and a charisma of 22. All the normal resistances. They have immunity to fire and poison. They also have true sight to 120 feet. And they literally have in their abilities, one, they have magic resistance as well as magic weapons for resistances. They also have a fire aura. At the start of each of the Baylor's turns, each creature within 5 feet of it takes 3d6 fire damage, and flammable objects in the aura that aren't being worn or carried automatically ignite. a creature that touches the Baylor or hits it with a melee attack or within 5 feet of it takes 3d6 fire damage. So you are just passively taking fire damage from this thing as you're trying to fight it if you're doing it in melee combat. On top of that, should the Baylor die, it explodes, and each creature within 30 feet of it must make a DC 20 dex save or take 20d6 fire damage on a failed save or half on a success. The explosion ignites flammable objects in the air that aren't being worn or carried, and it destroys the Baylor's weapons. So even when you finally manage to actually defeat the thing, it got the last stand, screw you guys, and will literally explode in a rage-induced like last throw, right?
Which, I mean, for the monsters that we're looking at here, it makes perfect sense.
It makes sense. Like, it's like, yeah, that's a final death throw. But like, let's even talk about what it can do while it's still alive. It has multi-attack. It can make 2 attacks, one with its longsword and then one with its whip. The longsword has a +14 to hit, a reach of 10 feet, and essentially does 3d8 plus 8 slashing damage plus 3d8 lightning damage. And if the Baylor scores a critical hit, it rolls the damage dice 3 times instead of twice. So that would be a total of, let's see, 6, that would be 12. That would be 12d8 of damage. No, not 12. I'm sorry. 12, 18. It would be 18 dice that you would roll, Sam. 18d8 worth of dice that you would roll if it scores a critical hit.
I want that.
That is just good. Woo! And with the whip is also +14 to hit, but has a reach of 30 feet, so it's got long range options on top of that. It does 2d6 plus 8 slashing damage, plus 3d6 fire damage, and the target must succeed on a DC 20 save or be pulled up to 25 feet toward the Baylor. So he can literally whip you from 30 feet away and pull you straight up to him to then attack you with his sword, which, if it crits, will deal 18d8 plus 8 worth of damage to you. Oh, but don't worry about that. You get outside of 30-foot range. The Baylor can use an action to magically teleport along with any equipment it is wearing or carrying up to 120 feet to an unoccupied space it can see.
They said, hey, I know you like the Balrog, but this one's cooler.
Literally, they were like, hey, all right, we can't call it a Balrog? Fine, we'll call it a Baylor and give it all this shit. Screw you.
I have a Balrog at home with cocaine and hookers.
Screw you, Tolkien. We do what we want.
You got mad at us for using halflings, so now we're gonna ruin your monster.
Literally. Or got mad at them for
Did they wanted to use what did they want to use?
They wanted to use the what do they call, not half
the little people.
Bilbo Baggins of, I can't believe, hobbits, that's the word. They wanted to use hobbits, but instead they couldn't, so they used half.
Well, they did for a while.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It was the same thing for Balrog. You know, it was originally the Balrog, and then they changed it, like they changed hobbits to halflings and the Balrog to Baylor. Which, you know, all right, fine, whatever. But that's great. Like that, but that in essence, like those guys, that is almost that just gives you a little bit of an in-depth look into, and there's so many more demons that we haven't even talked about, but that in essence gives you a bit of an idea of their like power advancement. And then finally, now again, I think it would do a disservice at this point if we don't talk about the absolute cream of the crop, the highest you could possibly be in demon kind, a demon lord. Now, that being said, there are specific kind of things that go into becoming a demon lord, right? Usually a demon lord, in order to be a demon lord, like truly classified as one, you have to technically have dominated one layer of the abyss at least. On top of that, another way is, as I kind of stated before, the abyss itself, for whatever reason, sees something in you, and it literally elevates you up to a certain power that allows you to gain domination of one or more layers of the abyss, right? Certain demon lords, even though they're demon lords, are not all created equal. And certain demon lords have more layers of the abyss under their control than others. But you ostensibly are considered a true demon lord once you have been able to either defeat a previous demon lord and claim their layer of an abyss, or prove without a shadow of a doubt that you unequivocally are the dominant force on a layer of abyss, effectively claiming that layer for yourself, and then being able to defend it from other demon lords, for instance. Like, you have to be able to defend it from others as well as claim it yourself. That being the case, a few demon lords here we have for you guys. Most of the ones that would be most infamous that you would have heard about. We can even go into specific kind of things here in the monster manual to kind of showcase a little bit of that. The chaotic power of the abyss rewards demons of particular ruthlessness and ingenuity with a dark blessing, transforming them into unique fiends whose power can rival the gods. These demon lords rule through cunning or brute force, hoping to one day claim the prize of absolute control over all the abyss. Although most demon lords rise up from the vast and uncountable mobs of demons rampaging across the abyss, the plane also rewards outsiders that conquer any of its infinite layers. The elven goddess Lolth, for instance, became a demon lord after Corellon Lorethian cast her into the abyss for betraying elven kind. Sages claim that the Dark Prince Gratz originated on some other plane before stealing his abyssal title from another long-forgotten demon lord. So those are two examples that kind of showcase, you know, a couple of ways of how you can truly become considered a demon lord. Demon lords have the power to literally control, as Sam said before, and reshape their layers of the abyss to their women liking. And it usually will begin to take on like a visage or forms off of like what that demon lord represents, right? If they're like Gratz, for instance, it's like debaucherous, sinful, sexual kind of stuff like that. Taboo things. If it's like Demogorgon, you know, it takes on a watery, insane, crazy, you know, multi-headed, multi-brained, twisting thing. Orcus, undeath, you know, there's nothing alive in any of the planes of exist or any of the planes of the abyss that Orcus has. It's all like skeletal, decay, you know, ruin, shit like that. Specifically though, we'll talk a little bit about those demon lords. One of the most prominent demon lords is one by the name of Baphomet, also known as the Horned King and the Prince of Beasts. You might be able to recognize Baphomet as like Yeenoghu, who we talked about earlier, is the patron kind of almost progenitor of the Minotaur race. He rules over minotaurs and other savage creatures. And if he had his way, civilization would crumble and all races would embrace their base animal savagery. He's basically like a giant, huge black-furred minotaur with iron horns, red eyes, and a blood-soaked mouth. He has an iron crown atop his head with rotting heads of his enemies, while his dark armor is set with spikes and skull-like serrations. He carries a huge glaive named Heart Cleaver, but often hurls it into the fray so as to face his enemies with merely his horns and hooves. Baphomet is crazy. He is a badass mofo.
Yeah, you know you're dealing with somebody if they throw their weapon away to go.
Yeah, literally. Like he is a badass mofo. Let's go ahead and showcase his stat block real quick, Sammy. Baphomet, huge fiend. So he is a huge fiend specifically. Armor class of 22, hit points of 319 with a speed of 40 feet. He has strength of 30, a dex of 14, a con of 26, an intelligence of 18, and a wisdom of 24, and a charisma of 16. He has resistance to cold, fire, and lightning, immunity to poison, bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage that is non-magical. So he's just straight up immune to any mundane attacks against him. You cannot hurt him unless you have some kind of magic. He's immune to charmed, exhaustion, frightened, and poison condition. Has true sight to 120 feet and has all languages and telepathy to 120 feet. He has a challenge rating of 23. Legendary resistances, magic resistance, and has an interesting ability that is intrinsic to like all Minotaur kind, is labyrinthine recall. He can perfectly recall any path he has traveled, and he is immune to the effects of spells such as the maze spell. Because he just always knows where he goes. He has perfect navigation. His attacks. Baphomet makes 1 bite attack, 1 gore attack, and 1 heart cleaver attack, and also uses frightful presence. His bite attack is a +17 to hit with a reach of 10 feet. On a hit, the target takes 2d8 plus 10 piercing damage. His gore attack also is +17 with a reach of 10 feet. The target will take 2d6 plus 10 piercing damage, and if Baphomet moved at least 10 feet straight forward or straight toward the target immediately before the hit, the target takes an extra 3d10 piercing damage. And if the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 25 strength save or be pushed up to 10 feet away and knocked prone.
I love it.
Heart Cleaver, another +17 with a reach of 15 feet this time, and on a hit deals 2d10 plus 10 force damage. His frightful presence affects each creature of Baphomet's choice within 120 feet of him and must be aware of him, must succeed on a DC 18 wisdom save or become frightened for 1 minute. A creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success. These later saves have disadvantage if Baphomet is within line of sight of the creature. And if the creature succeeds on any of these saves or effects, the creature is immune to the frightful presence for 24 hours. Baphomet also has spellcasting as well, though, as I believe almost all of the demon lords most likely do.
Oh, yeah.
And they require no material components whatsoever. And they have a spell save of 18. 3 times a day, he can either cast 3 times a day each, he can cast Dispel Magic, Dominate Beast, Maze, or Wall of Stone, and once a day he can cast Teleport.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah, for reference, everybody, like Baphomet is, I wouldn't say he's considered one of the weaker demon lords. Like there isn't necessarily like, there are technically like 3 primary demon lords. And then everyone kind of below them are like kind of on equal footing, more or less, kind of. Except for maybe Lolth, who is kind of her own thing as well, because she's like a dual demon lord and goddess. And so she's kind of like her own personal thing, almost. Like a lot of people don't even really consider her a demon lord specific, even though she lives in the abyss, specifically because she's a god, right? Gods usually kind of trump demon lords for the most part. And so usually they just reference her as a goddess instead of a demon lord because her demon lord status is kind of dwarfed by her goddess status. But the next one on the list, let's go ahead and talk again a little about the ones that we already have, like Yeenoghu. Yeenoghu would kind of be like, not the counterpart to Baphomet, but the 2 of them have bad blood, and they usually war and fight each other because they both have like they themselves don't even remember why they have bad blood. This is literally part of their lore. They just hate each other with an unmitigated passion, just hate each other, and they don't even remember why, but they do. But Yeenoghu, known as the Null Lord and the Beast of Butchery, the demon lord Yeenoghu hungers for slaughter and senseless destruction above all else. Gnolls are his mortal instruments, and he drives them to ever greater atrocities in his name, delighting in sorrow and hopelessness. The Gnoll Lord yearns to turn the world into a wasteland in which the last surviving gnolls tear each other apart for the right to feast upon the dead. Yeenoghu appears as a huge, scarred gnoll with a spiky crest of black spines and eyes that burn with emerald flame. His armor is a patchwork of shields and breastplates claimed from fallen foes and decorated by those foes' flayed skins. Yinogu can summon a triple flail he calls the Butcher, which he wields to deadly effect or wills to fly independently into battle as he tears foes apart with teeth and claws. Would you like to go ahead and go through the No Lord Yinogu's stat sheet, bud?
Yeah. So armor class of 20, 333 hit points, 50 feet of just normal speed. So no, well, he can fly, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
Let's see here. He's got 29 strength, 16 dex, 26 con, 16 intelligence, 24 wisdom, and 15 charisma. Resistant to cold, fire, and lightning, immune to poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing that's not magical, can't be charmed, exhausted, frightened, or poisoned, has true sight, up to 120 feet, knows all languages, has telepathy. Same thing as, legendary resistance, magic resistance.
You'll see a theme here with all of them. Like there is a reason why demon lords, again, they are favored by the abyss, and they're very hard to kill because of that.
Here's a cool, he makes 3 flail attacks as a multi-attack.
Yep.
He either does a normal flail, which is plus 16 to hit, 15-foot reach, deals 2d12 plus 9 force damage. If it's his turn, he can cause the target to suffer one of the following additional effects, each of which he can apply only once per turn. The effects are as follows. Confusion. The target must succeed on a DC 17 wisdom save or be affected by the confusion spell until the start of Yinogu's next turn. Force, they take an extra 2d12 force damage. Paralysis, they must succeed on a DC 17 con save or be paralyzed until the start of the monster's next turn. Or it can bite, which is a separate thing, but that's a melee weapon attack plus 16 to hit with a reach of 10 feet, dealing 2d10 plus 9 acid damage. They do have innate spellcasting as well. They cast detect magic at will. 3 times a day they can do dispel magic, fear, and invisibility. Once a day they get teleport. And then as a bonus action, when Yinogu reduces a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, he moves up to half his speed and makes 1 bite attack. And its legendary actions are Charge, where he can move up to his speed. Swat Away, which he makes 1 flail attack. If the attack hits, the target must succeed on a DC 24 strength save or be pushed up to 15 feet in a straight line away. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more, the target is also knocked prone. And then at a cost of 2 legendary actions is Savage. Make a separate bite attack against each creature within 10 feet of him. Now, you didn't read that wrong. If he's completely surrounded, it's 2 legendary actions to attack everyone.
Yeah.
Now,
everyone.
I'll be honest. Is he that scary by himself? He is not the scariest thing we've talked about in this channel. It's not really about that, though.
No.
It's going to be hard to kill him. 1. Second, you know what he's going to be surrounded by?
No.
Just a pack of them.
Hyenas.
Just a stupid amount of them. And because if you fight him in his own lair, they're going to be even worse. So the reality is,
here's the thing. That his ability to attack 3 times with his flail and inflict let's see, one of the following additional effects, he just has to keep paralyzing you. And then the other 2 attacks would be instant crits against you. Like he has to just he can attack all of you if you surround him in any way, shape, or form. Like Sammy said, he has a pack of ravenous gnolls and hyenas with him at any given point. Like, he's very simple and straightforward, and is therefore, ironically, probably one of the best demon lords to run for maybe a beginner GM who's maybe first kind of doing this thing, because he's not super complex. But it also just depends on, again, if you know in depth of his lore, his whole shtick, his whole thing that he has, it's not nearly as simple as just his stat block would lead you to believe. Yinogu is absolutely a force to be reckoned with for a reason. He is the beast of butchery for a reason. Let's go from here. Let's talk about, since we already referenced them, Ooouuwwweee. Talk a little about Ooououuwwweee. Where are you at, bud? There you are. Ooouuwwweee. Now, Ooouuwwweee is one of the more unknown demon lords overall. Not even other demon lords really know what goes on in his mind. And the funniest thing, what I love about Ooouuwwweee so much, almost no other demon lord wants to screw with him. They literally, like, demon lords love to screw with each other and mess with each other's plans and machinations as much as they can, but almost no demon lord would ever want to screw with Ooouuwwweee if they can help it. They are more than happy to just let him stay in his little isolated layer of the abyss and do whatever the hell he does, and they don't care as long as he just stays there. But
please stay over there.
Literally, anyone else, if he ever starts to come or act, like, so many of the demon lords would just be like, oh, like they would curse having to deal with him. He is a huge fiend with an armor class of 18, 350 hit points with a speed of 30 feet normal and a climbing speed of 30 feet. He has a strength of 24, a dex of 10, a con of 23, an intelligence of 5, or sorry, an intelligence of 20, excuse me, it's a +5, and a wisdom of 20, and a charisma of 16. He has resistances to cold, fire, and lightning, and immunity to acid, poison, and non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. He is immune to the blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, restrained, stunned, or unconscious condition. He is, like, literally immune to every single condition.
You can't do it.
There possibly is. There's nothing you can inflict on this dude with condition. He has a true sight to 120 feet and knows all languages and telepathy of the same distance. His abilities are magic resistance, the usual, but a couple of other things that make him even worse. He has an ability known as Foul. Any creature other than an ooze that starts its turn within 10 feet of Ooouuwwweee must succeed on a DC 21 Constitution saving throw or be poisoned until the start of the creature's next turn. So unless you're immune, you're just going to be poisoned if you're trying to fight him within 10
Always.
feet. Like, that's a DC 21 con save. Now, you're gonna be poisoned until the start of your next turn, but then you're gonna have to make the save again anyway, because you're still within 10 feet of him if you're a melee build of any sort. He also has spider climb. He can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, without needing to make any ability check. He can move across any surface as much as he wants, no problem. He also, which is arguably probably one of his most powerful abilities, is regeneration. He regains 20 hit points at the start of its turn. If it takes fire or radiant damage, this trait doesn't function at the start of its next turn, and Ooouuwwweee only dies if it starts its turn with 0 hit points and doesn't regenerate. So if you have fire or radiant, fire is pretty good, but he's also resistant to fire. So you're not going to do nearly as much damage, and you're probably less inclined to use fire because he's resistant to it. And so radiant would really be your best shot, but not a lot of things do radiant unless you're a paladin or a cleric or maybe a druid.
You're a very specialized individual.
Yeah. So, like, even that is hard pressed. And like Sam also said for Yeenoghu, you probably would be hard pressed to find Ooouuwwweee all by himself without there being a ton of oozes all around him. Black puddings.
I mean, like, that's what he does. So, like, in between you trying not to die from this dude, someone's eating your armor, someone's boiling your blood while you're stuck inside of an ooze.
He also has alkalists who will create portals to other planes of the abyss that will lead to more demons, most likely, if they're dumb enough to show up. But for his actions, Ooouuwwweee makes 3 acid lash attacks. Boy, say that shit there. 5 times fast.
Don't feel bad. I can't pronounce any of the names of the demon lords. So
acid lash. It has a +14 to hit with a reach of 10 feet or a range of 60 to 120 feet. If he wants to do a ranged attack instead, he can choose between the two. It can be a melee or ranged attack. And it deals 46 plus 7 acid damage. And any creature killed by this attack is drawn into Ooouuwwwee's body. Here, the corpse is dissolved after 1 minute. So I don't know how you're planning on reviving your bud and your friend if it's literally inside Ooouuwwwee's body.
You're not reviving them.
Unless you have you try to revivify, you're gonna have to run and literally touch Ooouuwwwe, which I would then say is basically like you're gonna take that same acid lash damage of 46 plus 7 damage. Like, he also has an ability known as Eject Slime. It is a recharge of a 5 to 6 on a d6, but Ooouuwwwe spews out a corrosive slime targeting one creature that it can see within 60 feet of it. The target must succeed on a DC 21 dex save or take 10d10 acid damage. Unless the target avoids taking all of his damage, any metal armor worn by the target takes a permanent -1 penalty to the AC it offers. And any metal weapon the target is carrying or wearing takes a permanent -1 penalty to damage rolls. The penalty worsens each time a target is subjected to this effect. If the penalty on an object drops to -5, the object is destroyed. The penalty on an object can be removed by the mending spell. But he can literally, every turn potentially, up to 5 turns,
just destroy your shit.
He can just destroy your shit. He makes it incrementally worse first, and then it'll just be gone potentially. And it doesn't specifically stipulate because it says any metal armor or any metal weapon. So even magic items and weapons
are not safe,
are still subject to this effect.
Yeah, that's going to piss off some players.
That's going to piss off a lot of players. To be fair, it's a recharge, but it's a recharge of a 5 or 6 for
Dragon's
one.
Breath recharge, which sometimes means you're going to have 8 of them.
I think some recharges are even just straight 6. You have to roll a 6. This is 5 or 6.
It's a rough one. And like you just don't see that many instances of things getting destroyed. So
to be fair, it is also like, oh, this penalty can be removed by the mending spell. But who takes the mending spell for any other reason than to just meme? I said meme, Sammy. I said, what do you take?
You see what it says right here.
Yeah.
This is it right here.
But you don't know that. You don't necessarily know that from jump. You don't
gotta be prepared for everything.
Oh, and the mending spell is prepared for in case you're encountering the incredibly rare.
No, it's for things like in case your wagon breaks down.
Ooouuwwwe. I mean, well, there's also, but that's the problem. Like, depending on how open and free your GM is, mending can either be an amazing spell cantrip or completely and utterly useless.
I will make the argument that if you read it as written, mending is actually a good spell.
I agree. People
sometimes don't listen to that.
I agree. I would argue as well. It could be, but a lot of time people are just like, well, no, you can't. Either way, Ooouuwwwe also, if you didn't already get this theme, this reoccurring theme, audience, he's a spellcaster, and he's able with a spell.
Not a crazy one, but
he has a spell save DC of 20, and he casts at will detect magic, and 3 times a day each, either gaseous form, which isn't that big of a deal, or contagion.
That's an interesting one. You don't see
it often. And contagion itself is like, because it's so difficult to basically have an effect take place. But with a DC of 20, however, it would be much easier for that spell to be much more applicable to a creature, especially if you can cast it 3 times potentially as well. Ooouuwwwe has 2 different legendary actions, and that one is just a normal acid lash attack that it can spend. The other one, however, costs 2 actions, and it's called Corrupting Touch. You melee attack with a +14 to hit, a reach of 10 feet. And it's going to take, the creature on a hit will take 46 plus 7 poison damage, and the target is slimed.
Ooh,
until the slime.
Nickelodeon?
Yeah, literally, the darkly Nickelodeon. Until the slime is scraped off with an action, the target is poisoned, and any creature other than an ooze is poisoned while within 10 feet of the target. So this ability right here essentially just takes away an action for a player or a creature. You have to use an action to scrape the slime off of you, or you're just going to be poisoned, and any other creature that isn't an ooze is also within 10 feet of you going to be poisoned. So it's like he just does this every round, and if a person doesn't scrape it off by the end of the round, he effectively is just going to continuously poison any individuals who aren't immune to it.
It's
all around.
There's a common theme with
He's a literal contagion.
Yeah, I mean, they're embodiments of exactly what they're supposed to be.
He's a physical embodiment of COVID-19.
Oh no, not the COVID-19 demon lord. Is that where the abyssal portal opened up in Wuhan?
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be. Blex just sent a piece of himself through.
Just a little guy.
Or, alternatively, we can go to his counterpart. Maybe it was Zuktmoy who sent that through. Why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about Zuktmoy, who is a specific kind of counterpart, or the only real rival to Blex. She is the only demon prince or the demon lord that will ever actively try to screw with Blex. And Zuktmoy is known as the demon queen of fungi and shares many traits similar to Blex. Some sages believe she is the originator of all fungi and molds in the multiverse, from the mushrooms that grow in the forest to the deadliest forms of yellow mold. Those who study demons argue that Zuktmoy isn't merely a patron of fungi, and that her ultimate goal is to meld all living creatures into one giant great organism, an entity that she will then join with and rule over.
Doesn't she share space with?
She does. Yeah, she and Blex are constantly competing over the same layer of the abyss. Like,
because they both live in the same place ostensibly.
Yeah, and it's like they each have, I think, like their one other kind of part or separate layer of the abyss, but then they war over another layer if it's not the same layer that they're because again, once some of her fungi infection, gets forward, then Blex's oozes come and disintegrate and ignore it, and then the fungi come back and absorb the acid and the slime, and that's why again Zuktmoy is the only demon lord that will ever willingly screw around with Blex. And for good reason, because she's also super nasty and ridiculously powerful. Zuktmoy, she's only a large fiend. She's not huge like a number of the rest of them. She's large. She has an armor class of 18, 304 hit points, a speed of 30 feet, 22 strength, 15 dex, 18 con, 20 intelligence, 19 wisdom, and 24 charisma. Same usual damage resistances and as well as immunities. She also is immune to charmed, exhaustion, frightened, and poison, has true sight to 120 feet, and all language and telepathy to 120 feet. She has magic resistance as well. Her most dangerous stuff, however, comes from one particular action that she has for an attack, as well as her spell casting. That attack is known as Zuktmoy can make 3 pseudopod attacks. These attacks are plus 13 to hit with a reach of 10 feet, and on a hit, the target's going to take 2d8 plus 6 force damage, plus 2d8 poison damage on top of that. Now, there is a particular kind of thing that can happen. Some people would argue that when these attacks hit, that she might be able to potentially embed mind control spores inside of you, as well as with some other abilities that she has here. But we'll go more into that later on down the line. Zuktmoy is a innate spellcaster with a spell save DC of 22. And she can cast at will detect magic, locate animals or plants 3 times a day each, dispel magic, entangle plant growth, and once a day each, either etherealness or teleport. She also has a reaction called Protective Thrall. When Zuktmoy is hit by an attack roll, one creature within 10 feet of her that is charmed by her is hit by the attack instead. So she can just basically make this person jump in front of them as a meat shield. She has a couple of legendary actions, but before that, let's get to what is arguably her most dangerous and powerful ability, which is known as infestation spores and her mind control spores.
This is the fun
So,
part.
as a bonus action, she can do one of these two things. Infestation spores, she can do 3 times a day. Zuggtmoy releases spores that burst out in a cloud that fills a 20-foot radius sphere centered on her, and it lingers for 1 minute. Any creature in the cloud when it appears or that enters it later must make a DC 19 con save. On a success, the creature can't be infected by these spores for 24 hours. On a failed, the creature is infected with a disease called the Spores of Zuggtmoy, which lasts until the creature is cured of the disease or dies. While infected in this way, the creature can't be reinfected, and it must repeat the saving throw at the end of every 24 hours, ending the infection on a success. On a failure, the infected creature's body is slowly taken over by fungal growth, and after 3 failed saves, the creature dies and is reanimated as a spore servant if it's a type of creature that can be. So that, in essence, it's not the most terrifying ability at once. It gives a lot of possibilities to be free of it and to not suffer the effects. Because as you've seen, should the unfortunate individual fail all 3 saves over the course of 3 days, they will just die and then be raised as essentially a mushroom zombie, a fungus zombie, under the control of Zuggtmoy. And she can do this 3 times a day. So she can infect 3 people with this.
Oh, not 3 people.
Oh, no, you're right.
3 times it's a 20 radius sphere. And
sphere.
so it's 40 feet of sphere. And
Diameter,
it's
40-foot diameter.
It's there for a minute. So
Yeah.
anyone that goes in there, anyone that starts to turn there, it doesn't matter.
And if you fail the save, then
obviously, so the one thing about this is it takes 3 days.
It takes 3 days, and
So,
you have the ability to cure a disease. So if you can cure a disease, if you have a paladin, you're fine.
There you go.
Should be fine.
But what makes it dangerous is the next ability combined with that ability.
Yeah, with the known as mind control spores. And these is a recharge ability of a 5 or a 6, like Ooououwwweee. Zuggtmoy releases spores that burst out in a cloud that fills a 20-foot radius sphere, so 40-foot diameter, centered on her, and it lingers for 1 minute. Humanoids and beasts in the cloud, when it appears or they enter it later, must make a DC 19 wisdom save. On a success, the creature can't be affected by these spores for 24 hours, but on a failed save, the creature is infected with a disease called the influence of Zuggtmoy for 24 hours. While infected in this way, the creature is charmed by her and can't be reinfected by these spores. So if these creatures
gets you, you get you.
You can't
leave.
You can't leave. You can't attack her. You can't leave. And it doesn't specifically say that if she attacks you, the charm stops. And on top of that, she can then use her legendary action to force you to take attacks by anyone who isn't charmed by her. And I would even say you couldn't get rid of the charm with Dispel Magic or anything because it's a disease. You would have to get rid of the disease to make them not be charmed by her.
Mm-hmm.
So you would need a paladin or a cleric or a druid who has the ability to get rid of disease. Anything else wouldn't work. You couldn't magically get rid of it, because it's a literal fungal disease infection. That is just good Lord.
It's awesome. It's so cool. She's not even that powerful, in terms of raw stats or abilities.
No,
but the theming and what you could do if you got really lucky.
Because it's just unlucky. And the biggest thing being is that it's just a passive effect. It's a bonus action, and she can activate both of these things if she wanted to. She could do the first one, activate infestation spores, and then activate mind controls.
Like, you
Or-
wouldn't be able to get close to her.
She could even, other way around, she could activate mind control spores if anybody failed and was charmed. She could then activate infestation spores and then maybe even control them to then fail the save. She could just be like, hey, just breathe this in. Don't resist. Just do this thing. And she could maybe make like a persuasion check or something. But if they're charmed by her, they have no reason to not necessarily do it. It would be like, oh yeah, no, I love you. You're great. Why would I not want your spores in me? Like, the GM could make an argument for that. Oh my lord, dude. Good lord. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about the big three real quick. There's some other ones that are pretty prominent, like Fraz Herblu. But let's go ahead and just talk about the big three really quickly. I know which one you would love to take, Sammy.
Well, which three are we talking here?
The main three, the strongest three demon lords canonically. And for those of you who might not know, those would specifically be known as Gratz, Orcus, and Demogorgon.
So we already talked about Orcus.
We talked about Orcus. We did
So
in the thing.
Do you
So
want Gratz or Demogorgon?
I can talk about Gratz. Gratz is one of my favorites. I have a personal feeling. So why don't you? I'll go ahead and talk about Gratz real quick, since Demogorgon is, interestingly enough, audience, unequivocally considered to be the strongest of all demons, because he alone holds the title of Demon Prince of Demons. And that is a very special title that only one can only ever hold. And all other demons fear to some extent. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. For now, let's go ahead and get into my boy, honestly, who I would probably consider my favorite demon prince of all of them, which would be Gratz. Gratz is known as the Lord of Pleasures and Limitless Indulgence, but also by the name or the title of the Dark Prince. Gratz is the ultimate hedonist. He incites lust and uncontrollable urges in both his cultists and his enemies. He also arguably might have the most cults of like all the demon lords, exactly because of his tendency to interact with them more directly and to a less openly detrimental effect as many of the other demon lords can. In Gratz's eyes, the universe is a great plaything, and one day he will be its master alone. All other creatures and things will be allowed to exist only if they give him pleasure. When he ascends to dominate the cosmos, all who are left will love and worship him. And despite his extreme self-indulgence, Gratz isn't blind to what goes on around him. He can curb his lust when he needs to plot against an enemy or counter an attack. When he must contend with an enemy, he fights with a detached, thoughtful demeanor, channeling his frustration at being distracted from pleasurable pursuits into the actions of a cool, efficient killer. Now, why Gratz is probably my favorite demon lord of all of them is because I feel like he has the most potential for great role play and story beat moments. Like, because he is much less about just straight up destruction, oblivion, decimation, or insanity, he is much more similar, and we'll talk a little bit about this, to devils and how he likes to interact. But it's different from devils in that he's still a demon first and foremost, and he still cares about the abyss's desire to spread and consume. Many people believe that Gratz, in fact, might even be an offspring of either Asmodeus, who was the Lord of the Nine Hells, or was originally a devil that came over to the abyss on some kind of like mission from Asmodeus and then became a demon because of how much time he spent there and was eventually corrupted and changed by the abyss itself. A lot of people call Gratz, I believe, currently has 3 layers of the abyss under his control, which I believe is actually more than any other demon lord currently. He has control of the most amount of planes. He might have even more than that, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's possible. I forget the exact amount, but I recall that one thing again that makes him again like part of like that can contend with like Orcus and Demogorgon, who are like considered to be like the two most powerful demon lords in terms of just like raw power and ability. He is part of that trio, or he makes that a trio because of the fact that he has the most territory that he has consistently not only obtained but held on to for all this time, and therefore has the most overall forces and overwhelming force of demons that listen to him and that will attack, even though he himself is maybe not necessarily the most powerful himself of the demon princes. Sages have put forth ideas for why demons consider the denizens of the nine hells as the greatest threat to their designs for the cosmos. Some researchers claim to have uncovered evidence that the animosity between devils and demons has its roots in a primeval time when Gratz, now a demon lord, was a member of the devil's hierarchy. As the hypothesis goes, Gratz wasn't satisfied with the prospect of being eternally subservient to Asmodeus in the Hells, where only one devil can claim supreme rulership. The Abyss, however, offers greater freedom to those who are powerful enough to carve out a realm for themselves. And after forsaking his status in the Hells, that's exactly what Gratz did. Those who find this idea plausible hope that Gratz's defection is a unique event, never to be repeated. For if that turns out not to be the case, another such shift could be a major turning point in the Blood War. Now, again, this is just a theory, a hypothesis that certain sages have put forth. There's not really much of a true confirmation that he is from Asmodeus or was a devil at any point. But it's mostly due to his behavior and mannerisms, how he runs things. For his layers of the abyss are referred to as the little hells because they are much more lawful. Like literally, people from other planes go to his planes of the abyss to trade, to engage in certain activities and experiences that you can't find anywhere else, and to find and do other things like, and they won't be like instantly killed or destroyed by demons there. Like they can go there, they can walk around, and they can be there without immediately being attacked and ripped apart because of how Gratz runs things.
Which is interesting. I mean, that'd be fun.
It's completely different from how any other demon runs their layers of the abyss anywhere. And it's also why Gratz has the highest number of cultists and cults under his name, because Gratz attracts most of his followers from the ranks of those who seek pleasure above all else. He promises dark delights and forbidden ecstasies in return for total submission to him. His cult gathers new members by circulating tracts, poems, and other works of art that depict encounters with him. Upstanding folk regard these works as vulgar, wretched, and obscene, but the delights they depict or describe sometimes lure a curious soul into learning more about the demon lord himself. That being the case, he also has a very interesting connection with the material realm and the people who reside there. Like he is the most interested in engaging with them. He also has quite the sordid history and affair with Tasha, otherwise known as Igwilf, who at one point in time was able to capture and seal Gratz and basically keep him under her control for a long time. He also, interestingly enough, has a very interesting history with the goddess Joaquin, who specifically tricked her and captured her in his abyssal realm for a long time during the time of troubles. And so you can see, even with that, his ability to interact and the things that he has learned and experienced already gives him such a juicy amount of like role play and story and history beats and potential that I just love. But you know what? Let's get a little bit more into his stats real quick. The true, just pure stats of Gratz. Now, like Zuckmoy, he's not the biggest boy. He is only a large fiend with an AC of 20. hit points of 346, and a speed of 40 feet. He has a strength of 22, a dex of 15, a con of 21, an intelligence of 23, a wisdom of 21, and a charisma of 26. Personally, I feel like that charisma should probably be 30. I don't know why it's only a 26, but regardless, he has, obviously, as you would expect, a number of skills that he has like plus 15 in. Both his persuasion and deception are plus 15, with an insight of 12 and a perception of 12. He has the resistances to cold, fire, lightning, and same immunities to poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical. He cannot be charmed, exhausted, frightened, or poisoned, and with a true sight of 120 feet. All language and telepathy are the same. He's got magic resistance as well as legendary resistances. His actions, however, are kind of dumb in a lot of ways. And I mean dumb as in stupid, ridiculous, and unfair at times. Gratz can make 2 attacks with his sword known as the Wave of Sorrow. He can replace 1 attack with the use of spell casting if he prefers. So he can attack once and then cast a spell if he would like. So he's basically kind of like a blade singer wizard in a way. His sword, great sword, have you, but he, even though it's a great sword, he's big enough to just hold it with 1 hand, is known as Wave of Sorrow. It has a plus 13 to hit, a reach of 10 feet, and on a hit, the target will take 46 plus 6 force damage, plus 46 acid damage, straight up. And as a spellcaster, Gratz is one of the most prolific spellcasters of all the Demon Lords, with a DC save of 23 for any of his spellcasting. He can cast at will, charm person, detect magic, or dispel magic. 3 times a day each, he can cast darkness, dominate person, telekinesis, or teleport. And once a day each, he can cast dominate monster and greater invisibility. And you'll see even why more so why a lot of that is busted based off of his other effects and abilities that he can have based on whether or not you are currently charmed by him. He also, though, doesn't even need to cast a spell for teleportation. He can just magically teleport with any equipment or things that he's carrying up to 120 feet to an unoccupied space he can see. So he doesn't even have to cast teleport. He can just literally, as an action, go like, bye, and be 120 feet away if he wanted to be. However, he also has a reaction known as negate spell. And it is a recharge on a d6 of a 5 or a 6, but he can essentially counterspell a spellcaster player. Gratz tries to interrupt a spell he sees a creature casting within 60 feet of him. If the spell is 3rd level or lower, the spell fails and has no effect. If the spell is 4th level or higher, Gratz makes a charisma check against a DC of 10 plus the spell's level. On a success, the spell fades and has no effect. So he can literally, it is a recharge, but as a reaction, he can counterspell you.
Well, not even just counterspell. He can counterspell you in a way that's uncounterspellable.
Yeah, it's not a spell. It's not a counterspell. So you can't stop him from counterspelling you. He can just literally negate your shit, potentially. And again, it's a recharge, but on a 5 or a 6, it's likely he can probably get that back. His legendary actions, he has 3 legendary actions that he can take, as well as 3 points to spend. One of them is known as Abyssal Magic. Gratz can use spell casting or teleport. So literally, using just 1 legendary action, he can cast a spell if he wanted to, or just teleport 120 feet anywhere. He can also make 1 attack with Wave of Sorrow. He can also utilize Dance, my puppet. And 1 creature charmed by Gratz that Gratz can see must use its reaction to move up to its speed as Gratz directs.
Awesome. It doesn't tell you like anything about not allowing them to
go through hazardous areas. He can make you walk off a cliff if he wanted to with a legendary action. One, he could do this. And mind you, he can cast Charm Person at will if he wants.
So every turn, you hit someone and then charm someone.
Yeah, he could attack you and then attempt to Charm Person you. You might have advantage on the save because you're fighting him, but he has a DC 23.
Yeah, he's a good DC.
It's a DC 23.
He also it's the fact that technically he could charm he'd charm 4 people in turn
Yeah.
if he used all of his legendary actions. And
Yeah.
then next turn, he could command 3 of them to kill themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, not like stab themselves, but they could have them walk off a cliff.
Yeah, he could have them walk off a cliff or into hazardous stuff. Because this particular ability, like again, charm creatures wouldn't necessarily do that themselves. But with this ability, Dance My Puppet, he forces you. Like you have to do it. You can't resist. On top of that, he also has bonus action, Change Shape. He can turn into a form that resembles a medium humanoid or back into his true form. So he can also hide himself potentially if he wanted.
Which I love because he has a great sword. He could still technically wield the great sword. He just has to use 2 hands this time, but he would be just as powerful.
He might not even have to because he still has
if he wants to keep up.
That's true. If he aside from the size. Yeah, isn't transformed. So I mean, like, yeah, he'd probably have to use 2 hands, but he could still probably do it.
I mean, he could probably do whatever he wants. My question is, the equipment for because some of these guys have like special weapons. If you kill them, would they drop the weapon? Because all the other demons when they die, all of their stuff ickers.
Well, so I'm wondering. So I would say if you killed them, maybe in the abyss, yeah, I think you would get their weapons. However, if you killed them out of the abyss, it would most likely go with them. Like the demon, I think everything that it has turns to ichor. So like if you killed them in their home plane, you could probably
it's a pretty cool sword you got there.
You could take their shit, I think. I mean, that is the law of the abyss, man. You keep what you kill, you know? Like so I mean, if you took Gratz out, you take much more than just his sword at that. You could potentially usurp his position as the demon lord of his layers, you know? Like
I know the next character I'm making.
Yeah, right. But that in essence, I'd say that is at the least Gratz. Like we're not going to go too deep into his backstory and other things. Maybe we'll save that for a different, like, because again, all of these demon lords have such meaty, juicy backstories that we could make an entire video probably on just them themselves. So we're just giving you kind of the top flavor stuff and then there's stats here that we like. But you know what? For this point, let's go ahead. Let's hit the finale. Let's get to the climax and let's talk about the true, undisputed up to this point, but you never know what might happen later on down the road. King of the Abyss at present, the one true demon prince of demons, Demogorgon.
I mean, and as compared to some of the other ones where these like, oh, you know, I'm the queen of fungi, he is just the king of unfettered violence and rage. The mightiest of the demon lords. I mean, there is no like he is the strongest one. Just raw power.
He just is. Like he got his title through his power and might alone. And we'll talk a little bit about him in a bit. Like you'll see, like he's not an idiot necessarily, but he's also not the smartest due to a very specific aspect of his physiology and thing. But by all means, Sam, let's go ahead.
Well, he's got 2 heads. Yep. He's got 2 heads.
Got twin heads.
What is it? Amiel and
Hathrodaya.
I would have gotten Hathrodaya, but the other one I would not have gotten.
Yeah.
But ostensibly they're not the same. They're like 2 different beings that argue sometimes and
they're 2 separate
sometimes.
Personalities sharing this one.
And so that leads him to be, for the sake of he's just pure unfettered violence, he's still devising and cunning and paranoid.
He is the epitome of paranoia.
Which makes sense in a place like the Abyss. But he also possesses immense physical power. Preferably, every challenge is just met with force. There is no like. It's usually not going to be subterfuge.
He's not really guile or cunning in that particular way. It's usually he'll just destroy it.
But he always pays attention. He sees every living creature as a threat, and only trusts like those who debase themselves in front of him. I mean, he wants to kill everythone.
Yep,
everything. That includes other demon lords. He wants to be the only thing that exists.
He hates almost except there's one. There are like one exception. He's like currently enmeshed in like a love triangle with like what is her name? She is also, I believe, a demon prince. She's the succubus queen.
I don't remember.
Yeah, she's the sucky. She's another demon prince. So again, much less well known.
But I like this little passage here. According to one hypothesis, if Demogorgon were to ever achieve the end of killing everything, his two heads would finally fight to the death, devouring each other and leaving behind nothing but a void.
Yeah.
Malkin
Fet, that's her name.
Malkin
Fet. She is the queen of the succubi, another demon lord. She's like the only thing that
I thought
Demogorgon...
succubi were devils.
No. They're both. That's what I'm saying. Like there are that succubi and incubi are technically considered to be like just fiends because they're one of the few fiends that are like both devils and demons. They
cool.
Go anywhere they want to go.
The interesting thing about Demogorgon that I think would be different from a lot of the other ones is that most of his cultists are demons already. That he doesn't have the same human following that say someone like Gross would, because looking at like pictures of him or symbols that have been created by him or powerful demons under his will can mess somebody up real bad.
Break your mind, literally break your mind and drive you to insanity.
So his whole idea is to destroy everything. There is no like in between. There is no like, oh, but maybe not. No, everyone. Because even the people that have sworn loyalty or debased themselves and he doesn't see them as a threat, they're still going to be the last ones to go. Like he still will kill them.
He's going to take himself out eventually too. Like he will be the last one to go if he has he himself also doesn't like himself, you know?
No. Which is kind of interesting. I mean, he's ridiculously powerful. We'll go over his, because honestly, there's not as much of a reasoning. It's literally just pure chaos and evil. He's a huge fiend, so we're back up to the big guy. Armor class of 22, hit points of 464, so by far more than we've looked at so far. A speed of 50 and a swim speed of 50. 29 strength, 14 dex, 26 con, 20 intelligence, 17 wisdom, and 25 charisma. Resistant to the normal things, immune to poison and non-magical damage.
The same.
Same condition immunities, same true sight and languages. Same legendary resistance, same magic resistance. Because they have two heads, the Demogorgon has advantage on saving throws against being blinded, deafened, stunned, or knocked unconscious. And they have a multi-attack, which can make 2 tentacle attacks, and he can replace one attack with a use of gaze, which is an ability. The tentacle attack is plus 17 to hit, a reach of 10 feet, does 3d12 plus 9 force damage. If the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 23 con save, or its hit point maximum is reduced by the amount equal to the damage taken. This reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if a hit point maximum is reduced to 0. So he has some vampiric aspects.
You have no chance of surviving. Like you can't come back up.
No,
like,
here's the cool
part. If your
part.
hit points hit 0, you're done.
Yeah. Here's another. So he can choose to use gaze instead. The Demogorgon turns their magical gaze toward one creature he can see within 120 feet. They must succeed on a DC 23 wisdom save or suffer one of the following effects. Choose one or roll a d6. I like that it gives that option because if you have a particularly nasty DM, they can just have fun.
Yeah, they can just go crazy.
A roll of 1 or 2 is beguiling gaze. The target is stunned until the start of the Demogorgon's next turn or until the Demogorgon is no longer within line of sight. Confusing gaze. The target suffers the effect of the confusion spell without making a saving throw, and the effect lasts until the start of the Demogorgon's next turn. The Demogorgon does not need to concentrate on the spell. Hypnotic gaze. The target is charmed by the Demogorgon until the start of the Demogorgon's next turn. The Demogorgon chooses how the charmed target uses its action, reaction, and movement. He can turn people against the party instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
They are still an innate spellcaster with detect magic and major image at will, which is great. 3 times a day, dispel magic, fear, and telekinesis, all good spells. Once a day, feeble mind and project image. Again, these are all good spells.
He can feeble mind you. He has a DC of 23, same as Gratz.
Yeah, and it's an intelligence save, so most people won't have that. Legendary actions. It can take 2. You can use gaze, and it must either be beguiling or confusing, or you can use a tail attack, which is a reach of 15 with a plus 17 to hit. It does 2d10 plus 9 bludgeoning damage plus 2d10 necrotic, or with 2 actions it can cast a spell. So this thing might not have some of the flashy abilities that we've seen before, some of the crazy things that we've talked about with like the giants and the dragons, but it is a tank with high to hit, high spell save DC, and it can mess with your party. I mean, and again,
He's
none of these
got
things
kind
are gonna...
of everything. He's got control. He's got
And he has-
debuff. He's got just
The best part is he has different saving throws. So if your party is like, oh, we're really good at con saves, okay, well now I'm just gonna confuse
Wisdom
you or
save,
stun
yeah.
you. You know,
I mean,
I'm not...
he has the ability to screw up your action economy or even
Yeah.
turn it against you. He has the most hit points out of, I think, any
of
of
them.
the
And he has one of the highest armor classes as well. I
Yeah.
mean, and the reality is, as we've said before, most of the time you fight these things, if you're trying to kill them for real, you're in their lair, which completely
that
screws you
changes.
over.
We haven't even talked about the lair actions that
Oh,
can
yeah.
happen with these
It's-
guys.
it's
like
nuts.
that's
But the reality is too, they're never alone.
no.
These creatures are never alone.
Especially with Demogorgon again, and this isn't technically showcased in his stat block, but any demon lord, they specifically have certain abilities and powers that come with the titles that they are bestowed, right? Demogorgon, because he is the demon prince of demons, that technically means he is able to literally control any demon, I believe, that's like within a mile of him or something. Like he's able to either control, like, and essentially attempt to dominate any demon within like 500 feet or a mile. I forget exactly what the more statistic or the mechanical restrictions were, but that in of itself means that he can literally just start calling demons to come in here and start also fighting with him. Again, we showed you before that the Malideus, he's probably gonna have a Malideus. They'll probably have he'll have a Baylor there. He'll probably have more than one Baylor with him there. Like
just chilling.
At least if you're fighting him in his lair. If he's out of his lair, he might not have as many of those more powerful ones with him per se. It depends on the situation. He could, but if you're fighting him in his lair, good God, like that's just, oh my Lord. Demogorgon, he is the biggest and the baddest for a reason, you know? And to be fair, Orcus is like a close second, and like Gratz might be like just behind them, less for his own power, but more so because of his influence and reach and the shit that he can do. But yeah,
we love it.
We love it, dude. I mean, this is why we love demons, man. I so want to find a time to run like an epic level, like 1-shot or 2-shot something to like, let's fight a freaking demon lord. Maybe 2, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, I want to get a thing where we can just like, we start storming Demogorgon or Grast or Orcus's castle or whatever the hell. And like, we're just like, so I want so badly to try this. Like, I want to face these guys so badly.
I don't even know what you bring to this. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what
everything, bro. You gotta. I mean, I would definitely want to go wizard. I think maybe paladin. I think I would love to do paladin because paladin I think would be super fun. I'd probably bring like my my Gloomstalker Ranger. That could be fun. My Azamar Gloomstalker Ranger. That could be really cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I'd probably do the what is it? The Hexblade Warlock with a bow, and you can smite people with spells.
Yeah.
Because necrotic damage,
Yeah,
they don't resist necrotic, they don't resist force, they don't resist and so I think that'd be a good pick too. But these things are like,
they're so cool.
One bad roll and you're screwed.
Your whole thing can just go out the window.
To be fair, like with all the crazy powerful monsters we talked about, with like the giants and like the dragons,
yeah.
Like these are things that like, oh my God.
I mean,
if
like,
you're not careful, one wrong move and like you're done.
To be fair, like these are also like, these were updated. To be fair, like these are updated stat sheets, but they also came like before, Big B presents Glory of the Giants, or Fizzband's Treasury of Dragons, where they showcase like the absolute zenith that giants and dragons can get to in like godlike proportions, right? Whereas Demon Lords, like, they've been around for a long time, and they've now made updates to their stat sheet, but also, depending on which one you look at too, yeah, like the older ones could be kind of ridiculous and crazy as well. But I so want to be able to have a demon themed campaign. Like I want to play in one and potentially run one. Like it would just
I'd love to run something where like they end up
cool.
in Grot's
yeah, dude.
plane. And so it's just about like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, the little hells. Like, how are you gonna get back, man? You're here in the little hells. Do you even want to get back?
Why are you?
Yeah, are you being corrupted? Right? Because again, the abyss is also gonna start corrupting you in the way that Gratz, has shifted it in his realm and in his layers. So it's like, oh, that would be so much fun. I would love that. All right, we're gonna have to find a time for that for sure. But hey, you know what, y'all? That in essence, I think that's the totality of our video on demons for today. Honestly, there's probably a shit ton more that we could go into about like the abyss itself and everything else, but we're gonna call it here for the day. Thank you guys again, if you stayed with us this long, so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed all the information, and as usual, our cute, adorable little comments and thoughts and expositions about how much we love this stuff. Once again, please do like, comment the video, and subscribe to the channel, and share it if you haven't already. We love and appreciate that so much in any way you can. But other than that, we appreciate y'all. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time when we dive back down into the archive.